Thanks for joining us for another episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. We're back to continue our division preview series. We're almost there. We're down to the final two, and this week it's the turn of the NFC West. Joe's beloved division, home of the San Francisco 49ers, so one very much close to our hearts here. We've got a couple of cracking guests coming up. Paul Hope's going to join us from the 49 Faithful UK. He's going to obviously talk us through the Niners. And then we've got Bo joining us from the Seattle Seahawks. Football Talk with Bo is going to join us to talk all things Seahawks. But before we get to that, we'll have a chat around the Cardinals. We'll also talk about the Rams. We're going to talk about some news as well, what's been going on in the world of the NFL this week. But first of all, Byron, Joe, how are you both doing? We're so close. We're almost there now, just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah, Premier League season's back, so that means NFL season's just around the corner. Got our last few preseason games this week, and then, yeah, we're about ready to go. It feels weird because only 3 weeks of the preseason, still takes some getting used to. But yeah, the big week was last week, week 2, obviously, and yeah, it's really, really, really getting close now, so very exciting.
Excellent. Joe, how are you doing? I appreciate you battling through.
Yeah, battling the man flu, you know how it is. So getting there. But yeah, I had to come on to talk about the NFC West because, like you said, it's my division. It's one I'm super interested in. And I think it's getting back to where it was as well. It was a few years ago, it was the cream of the crop. And I think this year it's going to be a lot better than it has been the last few years. So excited to talk about it.
Excellent. Good stuff. Yeah, you had to listen to us more about the Cowboys way back to kick off this series in the NFC. So yeah, only fair you get your turn to talk about your Niners. At some point. Let's, I suppose, kick off with a little bit of news. Few things going on. Some things outside of this division, so let's start there. The Atlanta Falcons have been making a couple of moves to try and reinforce that defense. Started with a trade for Judon from the Patriots and also signed Simmons at safety. What do we think of the moves that the Falcons have made? Does it feel like these are a couple of pieces that were missing from that defense?
I mean, yeah, the Falcons have been missing a pass rusher since probably the Michael Vick era, it feels like. So, I mean, yeah, Judon's a very competent one. I think he's just on a 1-year contract, so third-round pick may be a little much, but like you get him in the building, you don't worry about a third-round pick, I guess. And I think he said Jeffrey Simmons. That'd be a hell of an addition. Justin Simmons, yeah, obviously sat out all the training camp, really. I think it's just he doesn't want to do training camp, which at his age I'd fully understand and appreciate. He's going to be football already. He's, maybe had a bit of a down year with Denver last year, but hard to shine in Denver last year, I feel like. I think those are 2 really, really solid additions, though, for the Falcons. Defense is a weak point of the team. I think adding, they've got Jesse Bates and Terrell there as like the stars. I just think adding some really solid, really competent veterans is just a no-brainer of a move, really. I think it absolutely solidifies them as strong division favourites now.
Yeah, I think it was only a couple of weeks ago we talked about them, and that was my worry, was the defense, and and a few injuries as well. Obviously, the third round, Trice got injured, who they were relying on quite a lot. So it's just good that it's a team who's actually making moves. There's always like fan bases like, why are we not getting him? Why are we not getting? And it's like they've actually thought, you know what, we'll actually do it. And it feels like when they got Kirk Cousins, it felt like they were in a win now mode. And when looking at defense, it was like, oof, maybe not. But now they've actually got some pieces together, and it just feels like a year on like safeties. Just feel like there's like 4 or 5 of them like always hanging around until the last few weeks of training camp, and it's just picking up the veteran, which will work out. Because I know there was strong indications it was going to go to the Colts or a few other teams. So I think the Falcons are actually happy that they've gone out there and done something to improve the team.
Excellent. Injury news. So we sort of said, our last episode, we reviewed how the rookie quarterbacks did week 1 of the preseason, said how kind of JJ McCarthy looked pretty good, had a good outing for the Vikings. We're not going to see him again. So out for the season. Turns out he had a torn meniscus, knee injuries. So surgery is going to keep him out for the season. Vikings going to roll with Sam Darnold. Does this give him a better opportunity to win more games now? Obviously, you want McCarthy there to get the experience and be obviously your long-term starter. Does this give the opportunity for the Vikings maybe to be a bit of a surprise package in 2024?
I don't think so.
I hate being, for the Vikings, guys.
Yeah, I don't have any. I hate to be Nelly negative, but to me, like, even if they do win an extra 2 games, I think that's very kind to Sam Darnold, who, we just keep saying, well, he's never had a good opportunity, he's never had a good system, and that's all. It's not untrue, but he's looked garbage as well. Like, he's not shining despite his environment ever. He's seeing ghosts. And again, he was young coming into the league. There's a lot of that I do understand and appreciate. And Kevin O'Connell has made, chicken salad out of chicken shit, to use an Americanism, like, repeatedly as quarterback. But, like, even Josh Dobbs was great for 3 weeks. Nick Mullins was great for a game. I don't think Sam Darnold is going to be great for 17 weeks. I don't think he's going to be good for 5 weeks. Like, I just don't think he has it. And I think what success was to me for the Vikings in 2024 was, you've got JJ McCarthy and you know that he's your next franchise quarterback. And there's no way they can know that now. So, like, short of Sam Darnold getting into the playoffs, I don't see a world where that's possible, truthfully. I think the NFC is pretty strong. I think the NFC North is really strong, to be fair. It sucks because, like, you don't want to be August 21 and be like, your season's done, but I do kind of think it is for the Vikings. Like, I just don't see what I don't see what a successful season can be for the Vikings this year, short of like a playoff win, and I don't see a world where that's possible.
And I think Sam Darnold was going to start anyway. That's how I felt it was going to be. But I think what was encouraging for the Vikings fans is how JJ McCarthy looked, and it was more. I think it's the opposite, to be honest. I don't think now I'm thinking, they're going to win more because Darnold's going to play all 17 games. What I was thinking in week 1, JJ McCarthy might, steal this starting job, or he could come in earlier and actually perform a lot better than we thought they could. And like you mentioned, that it does reduce that chance of knowing you've got the guy and all that. But it feels like he's still going to be in the building. He's still going to learn from that. He's only 21 years old. It's not like it's a Penix, Penix Jr. who's older, who's had injuries and all that. It's so hopefully he should be fully fit next year. He gets a year under his belt, and it might be one of them weird things where we're like, it actually helped him. I don't know how true that is the quarterback missing the first year not playing, but it's helped some quarterbacks. So I think they've still got. I think what he did show was encouraging. Just hope he gets fully fit now, and I think it's good that they did get Darnold in earlier in the year. It would have been a lot worse if they thought this was our guy and would just have a nobody at backup, which plenty of teams have, and then they're scrambling now. So they're certainly prepared. At least got a borderline starting caliber quarterback. So it'll be interesting and how it works with Jefferson. Obviously, I think the only good news Vikings fan had is that Jordan Addison didn't have. It wasn't as bad as injuries as it looked like. Because it looked like it was JJ McCarthy out for the year and then Addison out for the year straight afterwards. So it's they've been hit by the injury bug. It feels like this year.
I don't want to go into too much detail on this because we've still got this division to come next week, the NFC West. But we had confirmation of the two questions over the quarterbacks in Denver and Vegas have been answered. Bo Nix is going to be the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Like, we only just found that out maybe a couple of hours ago. That was announced. He looks good again last week in my preseason week 2, back-to-back weeks where he looked pretty solid, pretty decent. And also then Gardner Minshew has been confirmed as the Las Vegas Raiders starting quarterback reluctantly by Antonio Pierce. Just quick thoughts on that, because like I said, we'll touch on it more in detail next week.
I think Bo Nix has looked, I'll be honest, I think he's looked better than I expected him to. I mean, with 12 years of college experience, I guess he should do, but he should look ready. But it looks good for Sean Payton's system. Like, Sean Payton, I think, is very specific on what he wants in a quarterback. It isn't Russell Wilson, obviously. And Bo Nix, I think, is doing exactly what he should be doing. And I think, the waiting for him to be announced as a starter, we were waiting for it, really. Jarrett Stidham, I think Sean Payton does like Jarrett Stidham, but he's not going to compete with a first-round pick. And Zach Wilson might stay in there as the third quarterback, which I guess is a success, really, considering how his career has been. And Gardner Minshew, like you say, reluctantly, I think is really the word from Antonio Pierce. He didn't look happy to be naming either of them as a starter. I would be stunned if Minshew starts 17 games. And we'll get more into it, obviously, on our AFC West preview. But I kind of, I wouldn't say I have a soft spot for the Raiders, but like teams who haven't been good for a long time, I always have a bit of a soft spot for. And I love their defense, and like I think 9 out of 10 of their positions on offense are pretty good as well. And I just think the quarterback is such a hindrance. Like they're paying Minshew to be like a bridge quarterback, and I'm not sure he's there. And AOC is obviously not there either. So it's been a bad preseason for both. Hopefully Minshew gets better in the season, but
it feels very opposite for these teams. One's like named the starter where, oh, this is the future, it's positive, maybe he's a lot better than what everyone thought. And the other one's like, ah, shit, we have to name one person. This could be a disaster of a year.
Yeah.
Which we'll touch on next week.
Yes, we will. Just a couple of bits from me before we jump into the start of the preview for the Cardinals. A couple of bits from, I suppose, last week and this week. Last week, I had the pleasure of going attending the Great Britain Women's American Football team's game in the European Championship, their final game, as they secured a silver medal, the runners-up spot, by beating Finland in an incredible game down at Worcester. Shout out recurring guest Beth Pilkington. She was incredible at linebacker. Just what a fantastic game. Finland were a great side. GB played amazingly well as well, and it was that defense for Great Britain that brought home the win, just stuffing and stifling the Finland offense. But it was a fantastic game. Great occasion as well. So it was down at the Worcester Warriors Rugby Union Stadium, where the game was, and had lots of people there in attendance to watch as well. Just outstanding. So shout out the Great Britain Women's American Football team. Congratulations on securing second place in the European Championships, and shout out Beth again. Just incredible performance. So,
I did see the winning touchdown, Phoebe Schechter. The pick six, and like I did get a bit of a go on there when because it was Beth Pilkington like ushering her in. Following her in and like make sure there's no one getting to her, which I thought was really cool. So that was really nice to see. And it was a hell of a defensive play. Just like I say pick six, it was like a fumble six, really. Just like tackles her, and then before she hits the ground, just like yanks the ball right out. I thought that was badass. Yeah, I didn't see the game obviously, but I've seen the highlight of that on Twitter, and I thought that was very, very cool. Good on you for getting down there though.
Yeah, it was cool. And Phoebe Schechter, by the way, just everywhere in that defense. He plays safety in that team, but then she's just absolutely everywhere. Incredible. But that was thoroughly enjoyable. And then this week, gonna be watching another game. So we're off to Dublin to watch the Aer Lingus College Football Classic down at Aviva Stadium, the old Lansdowne Road. The Florida State Seminoles, so a great team to be coming over, are taking on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And it should be an incredible weekend. We're going to be getting there on Friday. Hopefully catch Pat McAfee live at JR Mann's pub down in Temple Bar. But we're going to be attending a couple of Pro Football Ireland events. So shout out Mac McCade, who has organised all of that. We're going to be at the tailgate, which is at the same place, and also the after party. And hopefully going to get to see and bump into a lot of people we've met through the show. So it'll be awesome to see everybody there. So if you're going to be in Dublin town, give us a shout, and I will definitely be drinking a lot of Guinness. So let's have some Guinness, Beamish, Murphy's, O'Hara's, Caffrey's. Other
drinks are available.
Other drinks are available, but those are the ones I'm going to be drinking. So that should be a great time. And we're going to be betting the over. So, going to be betting the over. So points, please, from Florida State and Georgia Tech. Let's get into then our preview. We're going to start with the Arizona Cardinals. No guest for the Cardinals, but we're going to do it. And Paul's going to operate. I'm going to operate the screen, and this is going to be disastrous. So, we're on it. Excellent, good stuff. Not that I should have had this prepared, but here we go. On to the Arizona Cardinals. Which usually, it's gone wrong already. 4-13 record in 2023 to finish fourth in the NFC West. Initially competitive in the early weeks of the season, despite low expectations. 3 of 4 wins came against playoff teams. Kyler Murray returned from ACL injury partway through the season, has a new favourite target in tight end Trey McBride, and James Conner led the league's 4th-ranked rushing attack. Byron, let's start with you. What do you make of the Cardinals' kind of 2023 season? Same record as 2022, but I think a heck of a lot more reasons to be optimistic and hopeful.
Yeah, it definitely felt like a better season. It didn't feel hopeless. It felt much more the opposite, especially once Kyler got in there. Like, we had the Pastronaut Josh Dobbs' experience first half of the season. Very fun. And I think, to be fair, a lot of people, consensus really was the Cardinals were going to be picking number 1 in the 2024 draft. And I think to just be competitive, considering I think everyone was out on Jonathan Gannon after how the Eagles defense played in the Super Bowl the prior year against the Chiefs. And he had that awkward video of him meeting the players, and it was a bit odd, let's be fair. And I think one of the things that we kind of trip ourselves up with in the NFL, content and journalism world, is in the off season, there's so little happening and so much air to fill that those kind of things you can double down and triple down and quadruple down on. Well, remember he was a weird guy, Gannon, and the defense done this in the Super Bowl. It's yeah, but it turns out he's maybe just a really good head coach who does bond well with his players, and he seemed like he certainly got the most out of them last season. So I struggled to really criticize. Drew Petzing, I think, put a good offense together. Like you said, Trey McBride, again, second half of the season, once Zach Ertz was out of town, was up there as best tight end in football, really, let's be fair. Kyler Murray looked good coming off his ACL, if not, he looked like a quarterback coming off his ACL injury. He wasn't as mobile, but you expected that to improve as time goes on. And James Conner was close to lights out. He was one of the best running backs in football, again, down the stretch. If you took him late in fantasy drafts, I'm sure you were very happy with your output you got from him. And I don't think they're necessarily going to make the playoffs this year. Well, so we're getting 2023 here, but I was just impressed, I guess, with how Gannon kept his team focused, galvanized. The towel never went in. And again, a lot of people had marked him as is he going to be one and done? He's a weird guy. I think he's really turned that around now, and I think he's probably one of the more I'm not going to say respected coaches after a year, but I don't think anybody's thinking that he's going to be getting fired at the end of 2024.
Yeah, I think Cowboys fans we were on the back of it from being I think the Cardinals were a 14-point underdog at home. I think it was in week 3 against the Cowboys and beat them by 2 scores. So, yeah, they were frisky. That would be the word I'd use to describe the Cardinals. They were frisky, especially that early stage of the season. And it was always good to see Kyler Murray come back. Kyler Murray is probably one of my favourite quarterbacks to watch. He's just so much fun. I think we got to see the best of Kyler maybe in week 17 in that Eagles game, the big comeback that they had. You kind of saw maybe he was kind of starting to get back to where we hope and he expects to be. He's so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I think it was positive. I think when he did come back, their offense was in the top 10 by the time he came back. So he I think going into last year, I think one of the big discussion was, are we even going to see him at all? Is he just going to sit out this year? I think I had them down as the next 0-17 kind of team, just because how they, with the quarterbacks coming in to the year, everyone was like, who are these guys? So the fact that they got them 4 wins, like you said, that it was a respectable 4 wins. I don't know if 4 wins is respectable, but where they were, what was expected, the fact that Kyler came back and proved that he's still a good quarterback. They've got some young, good talent coming through. It's a building block, and that's all you need when you're one of these teams. You just want to see that there's hope for the future, and so that certainly helped them. And and when we move on to the next one, where they actually finish, helped them to get a big pick and a big player.
Let's talk about that. And so, sorry, Joe, this doesn't have your fancy animations on it because I put it together, so apologies. But yes, they did. They spent their number 4 overall pick in the draft on generational talent wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. Some off-season headlines, pretty quiet apart from that, really, I think, unless I've missed anything obvious. But OT offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr., who was their first-round pick last year, has now switched to left tackle in year 2. And they've overhauled their defensive line in an effort to improve 2023's worst rush defense. Joe, do you want to take the lead on Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Well, I think we spoke about him quite a lot during the draft, didn't we? So the fact that they managed to get the fourth pick and arguably the best player in the draft, full stop, probably him versus Caleb Williams. So you were really happy with where they ended, that they managed to get him, and it just makes his team exciting again. We saw what I'm not saying he's going to be a Justin Jefferson, but he's got the potential to be that way, and he's changed a franchise, and where it doesn't matter what quarterback you've got, he's still going to be an amazing player. So if you get one of them players and blue chip players, you start, that's how you start becoming a great team. And the organization has not had many of them over the last few years. So to get him in, hopefully hit on that and actually make it, because it feels like the Cardinals, I'm just thinking of the last few drafts, a bit before, they always went for like the weird, like the in-between kind of players. Is he a defensive edge, is he a linebacker, and all this kind of, and never like nailing the first round draft. So I think getting Marvin Harrison Jr. and how he's been performing in the off season, I think sets him up well. And this league's all about, it feels like it's very much about the quarterbacks and the wide receivers now. So if you get one of them high end receivers on a rookie deal, then you're laughing right now.
Yeah, it's I'm so intrigued, and I think Kyle and Marvin Harrison Jr. could. Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch. I think those two together. I mentioned the switch on the O-line. Sebastian G played right tackle last year, switched to left tackle. Did this feel like a move that was going to be kind of a bit inevitable, given that he was taken quite high in the first round in 2023? Yeah, excellent answer to my question. Thanks, guys. And the overhaul of the D-line with a first-round pick. I think pick 27, wasn't it, Robinson? And I think there's only a couple of the guys from that D-line that have returned. Could see, I think, 140 yards on the ground per game in 2023. It's got to be a problem that needs to be solved for the Cardinals.
Yeah, especially in the division they're in as well, where they're all running or rushing kind of teams is usually their bread and butter. So it's certainly what they need to fix. And I think they had a million draft picks, didn't they? They had loads, and I know they beefed that up to try and fix that. Because all the teams they'll be playing in the West is this, all their offensive building block is the run game, and then everything works off that. I think that's going to be the case with Seattle as well. So they need to be competitive. They need to fix that area.
Excellent. Let's have a look at some of those moves then. Yeah, I'm surprised we managed to fit all the draft picks on the slide. To be fair, there's 12 of them. There's a lot of draft picks. I suppose key moves in free agency, I suppose ones that are relevant. Jonah Williams came in. Yeah. Jonah Williams came in. Sean Murphy-Bunting, cornerback as well. But then look at that draft. I think a lot of that. Darius Robinson at pick 27. And then some depth for that D-line. Round 5 in Xavier Thomas as well. Let's just put Marvin Harrison Jr. to one side. Who else? Who we expecting to see some kind of production from in that Cardinals draft class in 2024?
Well, putting Harrison to one side, but I think Darius Robinson, the first round pick as well, has got to be a starter, and he's got to be like a plus starter, because that defense it's still really talent poor. So you're asking a lot to compete, and like Joe said, especially in that division, like that is 3 really good offenses you're going to go against every other week, essentially, or every third week. Trey Benson's had a bit of an up and down preseason. I think that he needs to be a contributor as well. Like James Conner gets injured every year, and he probably will. I mean, most running backs get injured every year, to be fair. So by mid-season, end of season, you want to see Trey Benson splitting that workload a little more. And if James Conner does miss some time, again, he needs to be able to step in and play with a 3rd round pick. I've been kind of impressed with what I've seen last week in preseason. The first week he looked really hesitant, but week 2 he seemed to be hitting his holes really smoothly and really quickly, so that's a positive. The rest I'm not too sure on, truthfully. I think it is a lot of depth, and I think they are a team that needs it. Again, I think they've done well to get the 4 wins last year. They were actually pretty good against the spread as well, the Cardinals. I know we talked about that, kind of like touching on the Cowboys, but I think they were 9-8 against the spread last year, which, good teams win, but great teams cover. To only get 4 wins, but to actually cover the spread 9 times, I think tells you more about how much they got out of what they are than just the record itself. But I think what they do need is, and having a draft pick with a draft room with 12, I believe that is just there, without the undrafted free agents as well. They need bodies in there because they are, I think, one of the more talent pool outside of the big names on offense, rosters in football, sadly. So,
yeah, I was just looking at the depth chart they've released on their website, and none of the rookies except Marvin Harrison is actually in the starting. They're all like the second or third line. So I think, like you said, it's just getting them bodies in to try and have the depth, because injuries is going to be such a thing that you need these young players to cover. And I think, yeah, it's one of them like weird teams, and there's a couple of ways you look at the teams like, there's like, if you just ask like a standard NFL fan if they could name more than 5. So I think he's just trying to get them players, and hopefully one or two of these hits and becomes a star. But yeah, it certainly needs some depth and to start competing, and because you're looking for this year to show improvement. And yeah, they can't go again 4-13 and keep going that way.
Yeah. Just a quick word. We've talked, already mentioned Marvin Harrison Jr. in terms of how good we think he could be at the NFL level. Is there a risk, certainly this year, that with how bare the wide receiver room looks in terms of talent, that teams might find it easy to cover him out of games? So Marquise Hollywood-Brown, gone. Rondell Moore, gone. After Marvin Harrison Jr., Zay Jones came in as a free agent. Michael Wilson did okay last year.
He was injured a lot last year.
Yeah.
I do like him as a talent, but I think he had shoulder injuries. I hate shoulder injuries with wide receivers because shoulder injuries recur a lot. So it doesn't fill your confidence. And then Greg Dortch's been having a really good training camp, but Greg Dortch's never going to be a wide receiver 1. And yeah, I kind of agree. Like, easy might be putting it a bit too much on it.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I struggle with Marvin Harrison in fantasy where he's going, because he's going, in one quarterback leagues at the end of the first round. And it's like, I just find that really tough, because you've got to have a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson type season to justify that. Like, he's been taken absolutely at his peak. And yeah, between Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison, I think that's going to be 55%, 50% of their target share. So yeah,
I guess it's how the running game goes again. So obviously, if they can get that going, if they can, again, work off that and try and get targets that way. But I do agree it's going to be a struggle with, unless, like you said, Michael Wilson takes that step, keeps on the field, and just giving outlets. So you have the Higgins, the Addison. There's like someone who can counter them just to give him a little bit more room. But I think he also doesn't have that. He's coming with all this press and expectations that there's going to be a lot of cornerbacks who are looking forward to showing that he's not as good as his dad are. So,
yeah, excellent. Right, let's have a look at the odds and lines for the. I really did not look at these slides properly. Sorry, for the Cardinals. Over under 6.5 is the line for the Cardinals. 4 wins last year. Where are we sitting? How many wins have we got for the Cardinals?
I have them at 6 exactly. Oh, exactly. Yeah, not 6.25. Yeah, I have them at 6. So I don't really want to bet the under though, because I could easily see him getting 6, 7. It's a lot of fine lines, especially that division. You have some wacky games, I feel like. But I do have them at 6 and 11. So if I was just strictly betting on my season predictions, I would take the under. But I don't really want to. I want to be hot.
I'm the same. I'm 6 and 11. I admit a lot earlier in the off season, I was like, I think the Cardinals might be able to sneak in the playoffs. I was like, couldn't they get to 9-10 wins? But yeah, I think it's asking too much. That defense is just so talent deprived. Yeah. I think it's going to be a struggle. Joe, where have you got the Cardinals?
Yeah, I'm similar as well. I think I was looking at best look at everyone over 7. I just think it's just a tough division. I've gone around 5 or 6 as well, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Murray goes off and surprise a few teams. I just don't know if they can be consistent over the full year.
Yeah, the division's so tough as well, isn't it? But then they've got just fairly rough games in general.
They've got the AFC East out, Yeah, that's a division matchup, and again, the Patriots is a gimme. Let's just say, but that's 3 teams I'd favour them to lose to.
Yeah. It's just hard looking on the schedule. Yeah, they've got some games where you think obviously they'll win, but it's just tough. They play the Chargers as well, who obviously under Harbaugh, probably that would be a game that they think that they would win. They do have the Panthers. They do have the Commanders. So there's a couple there, but yeah, I think it's going to be a rough old time. But I think if what they can show is they can be again competitive over the course of the whole season. I suppose that would be, of that, pick up an extra couple of wins, then that would certainly be progress. If you're fancying the Cardinals to make the playoffs, you get them at 3-1. So it's interesting, yeah. 9 wins, 10 wins might get you 3-1. Division winners 12-1, rank outsiders, conference winner 50-1, and then Super Bowl winner 100-1. What would be a good season for the Cardinals, do we think?
Kyler Murray looks like Kyler Murray again. Marvin Harrison justifies his stock as a first-round fantasy pick and is there for the seasons to come. I mean, a huge success would be making the playoffs. I just don't really think that's realistic. So I think, and some of them rookies becoming, contributors and starters in year one. I'm not going to try and name them because there's 40, I think there was on that sheet last. So I think, the big names being who we think they are and just some youth coming through and, stocking up that starting lineup.
Quick question. Are any of Puka Nakua's wide receiver rookie records, that's not easy to say, Puka Nakua's wide receiver rookie records in danger with Marvin Harrison Jr. around? We saw him set them last year for yards and catches.
I mean, my heart says no, just because it's so... Records are tough to break, and Matthew Stafford is a wide receiver maker as well. Kyler Murray is really good, but he's not Matthew Stafford in terms of, you look at some of the greatest seasons we've ever had as wide receivers in our lifetime as fans: Calvin Johnson, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. All of those is Matthew Stafford just getting the absolute best out of his wide receivers. I don't think Marvin Harrison's going to get there this year. It would be an incredible achievement. I just don't think it's, I think he got to be better in it.
Yeah, and the question could be, he might not be even the rookie who does that with how, Neighbors has been looking at the time. But they're both in teams with not many other options other than them. So does that hinder them in terms of how a defense gets played? One, Puka had a lot more talent around him. Like you said, superstar quarterback.
I mean, he's definitely not going to be an elite Neighbors as good as he looks. That poor fella's got Daniel Jones trying to throw him the ball who just can't seem to get out of his own way.
Hey, at least he didn't give up a safety.
Yeah, he did not,
pick 6, but didn't give up a safety. So
pick 6 from your own end zone, incredible work from Daniel Jones. But less about him. Let's move on and talk about the next team. LA Rams. Los Angeles Rams. Finished 10-7, second in the NFC West. Made the wild card, made the playoffs, I should say. They lost a thriller on Matt Stafford's return to Detroit in the wild card round, 24-23. And was one of the games of the playoffs and one of the games of the season. It was a cracker. They started 3-6 and then won 7 of their last 8 to make the playoffs. We just talked about him, but Nacua kid on the block. Puka breaks rookie wide receiver records. I've had to say that way more than I was hoping now. But how would you sum up the 2023 season for the LA Rams?
Again, I think it was another surprising season how well they did. I think coming into the year, there was issues with Stafford's shoulder. They didn't know if he was playing. There was some grumblings around. It didn't look all too rosy there. And then suddenly they just, they might not started well, but it ended certainly amazing. They've gotten another wide receiver target. I think, it was a lot better than I expected it. I wasn't expecting them to really challenge, or I didn't think they would be. I think they would challenge for like a playoffs, but not at how good they were looking. When going into the playoffs, they were, I think, one of the favourites, to be honest. And I think they were just unlucky that they got Detroit while a few other teams got the Cowboys, and it was unlucky for them. So.
Jeez, Joe, that was unnecessary, wasn't it?
Starting.
Great run at the end of the season. They finally kind of got it together. It kind of felt like there was still a bit of a hangover the first part of the season from how 2022 went. It was kind of everything that could go wrong in 2022 in terms of coming off the back of the Super Bowl in 2021 just did go wrong. It kind of felt like a little bit like that to start the year. But yeah, they kind of got it together, made that run, and in the end, comfortably were in the playoffs. And yeah, kind of, I had the same with you. I thought they were going to be a real threat. I really fancied them to go to Detroit and win, just because, again, that experience factor in those kind of games. But yeah, I still think they're going to be a real dangerous team this year.
Mm-hmm.
Let's have a look then at some off-season headlines. They got to use their own first-round pick in the draft for the first time in a long time, and for the first time since 2016 when they took Jared Goff, number 1 overall. They took edge rusher Jared Verse with that pick, but they also picked up defensive tackle Brandon Fisk from Florida State to beef up a defensive line, which has lost Aaron Donald, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. Aaron Donald retired. And we've seen some changes on the offensive line. Jonah Jackson has come in, and Steve Avila, who had a really good season at guard out of TCU, has been moved from guard to center. How weird was it to see the Rams on Thursday night of the draft actually make a pick?
Probably as weird as it's going to be not seeing them with Aaron Donald next year, truthfully. It's going to be I know he's undersized, but he's a big presence on the field. It'll be a huge miss to neutrals, and to Rams fans, I'm sure, but I'm going to miss seeing him play because he's, he walked into the Hall of Fame, obviously, whenever his 5 years is up. So, but I think they might not be well-versed in making picks, but I think they've done pretty well with them. Went exactly where they need to. And they've shown they can get any kind of 5th-round pick to come out and play wide receiver, so they don't need to take 1st-round picks there. I like what they did in the draft. I think D-line became an instant need as soon as Aaron Donald, walked off into the sunset. And, I like the 2 players that took there to do so.
Is there a bit, or what do you reckon the chances are that Aaron Donald comes back later in the season?
I don't think it's 0, but I always have them things as pretty close to 0, truthfully. It's exciting to think, but I don't know. I just kind of think once you're done, you're done. For the most part, I know it does happen, but I think for the most part, you say you're done, you're probably done.
So I've just got a sneaky feeling that we might see him when we get to November, December. I don't know.
Yeah, I do wonder, there's a lot of things you can't do as an NFL player when you're training that might be beneficial to an older player that aren't legal. Essentially, what I'm saying is, but you could do it through the summer and then come back in November and it's out your system. But you've had the benefit of that training boost. Could happen. Not accusing Aaron Donald of being a drug cheat. But I think it's something, if I was a player, I would probably look to explore it. I'm not going to play in the summer. Why not use the things that I can't do legally during my NFL career if I wanted to maybe come back?
It's an interesting one. There's no doubt Sean McVay must be on to him almost every day, bugging him to come back, but we'll see. Interesting run for the Rams. Let's have a look then in terms of their moves. My screen just decided to break. Excellent. Some free agency. So we saw a couple of additions in the secondary as well. Tre'Davious White's an interesting one. To kind of, again, bulk out that secondary. What do we make of that? Obviously, White at the time, Buffalo, kind of came to end injuries, really, wasn't it? That kind of killed off Tre'Davious White in Buffalo. Opportunity to go again in LA.
Well, I think it's injuries, but more importantly, it was the Achilles injury, which is a killer for an awful lot of players, an awful lot of positions. Interestingly, the Rams team doctor who signed off on Tre'Davious White, though, obviously it's just a 1-year contract, is the doctor that performed his surgery on his Achilles, which is a little oddity. So if anyone knows how well his muscle is looking, you'd hope it's that doctor. So I think that's positive. I think it's kind of a 0 risk move. There's not many good cornerbacks come on the market. If Trey White can be 80% of what he was, then it's a hit at $10 million for a year. It's a classic Rams type move as well, I think. I know they were forming a team. I mean, it doesn't look like it looking at this board, but they used to be the team of fuck them picks. And now they're, Jesus Christ, making many picks as the Cardinals, it looks like. But I think getting savvy veterans in on 1 year, they had Eric Weddle a few years ago. They've had lots of defensive players over the years who come in on 1 years to try and keep them at the top, get them over the edge. And I think this could be another one that just kind of works on 1 year. as long as he doesn't get injured, as long as he's about 75, 80, I don't know if you're never going to get 100% back after an Achilles at that age, but he's a smart player, so I think it's a good addition.
Yeah, excellent. In terms of the draft, we've already mentioned kind of Jared Verse and Braden Fisk in the first part of it. Blake Corum's one that excites me, and the hit on Kyron Williams. I think it could be a very interesting 1-2 punch for the Rams.
Yeah, I mean, Sean McVay loves to ground and pound with his running back. It's normally a running back, truthfully, whoever it is, can normally expect him to get, 18 carries a game. But I think that's why you really want to have a good number 2, because it's tough to be a running back in the NFL. And, everyone was obsessed with Blake Corum was going to go to the Chargers. And you look at the Chargers running back room, I bet they would love to have Blake Corum in there now, truthfully. But that's why I, again, think it is such a good addition for the Rams. Kyron Williams shone like no one expected to him last year. And, yeah, I can see Corum spelling him really well. If it's a handful of games, if it's coming in spot duty in the second half of games, I think he'll hit the ground running. Pun not intended.
Yeah.
For once.
Joe, any other kind of impact plays you start seeing from the Rams? Anyone we've not talked about you seen who could be a big influence on the 24 season for the Rams?
Well, as always, kickers need to shine as well. So obviously drafting Carter round 6, it looks like he's going to be their kicker. So it's so we know how rookie kickers can be, where they can make a break. So I think that's big. But yet, I think a lot of these depths, like Tyler Davis, looks like he's been performing well. It looks like he's going to be sitting behind the starters. But again, it's depth to cover that. Aaron Donald loss and just hitting on big people like they did last year, like Kobe Turner and Byron Young, and a few of them because they had such good years. You're just hoping the same again. So I think they've got certainly some good players to back up and try and mitigate that loss and excel them to be better than last year.
And Jordan Whittington's been shining in the preseason. I think he could be battling DeMarcus Robinson for that wide receiver. They play a lot of free wide receiver sets, the Rams. He's one, if you're in a deep fantasy league with 22 teams or anything like that, I'd probably keep an eye on Jordan Whittington pretty late. I think he might be an immediate contributor.
Yeah, he's had 11 catches through the first 2 games. Obviously, a bit more of him because the Cowboys played the Rams in the first week. But looks a very Matthew Stafford friendly wide receiver so far.
Yeah.
Can't get enough of them. Let's have a look at the lines then. Over under 8.5 was the line on the Rams. Now, considering they were a 10-win team last year, I was surprised it wasn't 9.5. But what do we make of the line for the Rams?
I'm smashing the over. I think that's almost insulting to Sean McVay, truthfully. Last year was meant to be a transition year, and they were 10-7, you said?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I have them at 12-5. I think they're going to be great. I mean, Aaron Donald's going to be a huge miss, but I have so little doubt about this team that, I think, I'd struggle to get them to 9 wins. In the negative sense, I have them at 12. I could see them getting 11 or 10. I think that's odd game here and there, but I mean, 8.5. I think that's criminally low, truthfully.
Yeah, I've got them at 12. My 2 run-throughs, I've had them at 12-5 and 11-6. So in and around that'll be one of my big bets, I think, of the season when we come to it. I just think 8.5s. Again, disrespectful. Just in that, just with that Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, there's enough offensively. Defensively, I think they're a good enough unit. Tough division, no doubt, but 9 wins. Yeah, I've certainly got the Rams heading back to the playoffs, and to do that, they'll need to go over that number. So, Joe, where are you with the Rams?
Yeah, I had them at 10 wins as well. I was really surprised when I saw this number. I know, obviously, Aaron Donald is a big loss, but it feels like it's been more of a settled off season with there was no issues with Sean McVay thinking about retiring or not. And I'm guessing I wonder if anything with the Stafford injury, he's apparently got dealing with a hamstring, if that's affecting anything. I'm surprised it's affecting it that much because the first game's against Lions, which I didn't have them to win, and then the Cardinals the second week. So unless they're thinking it might miss a couple of weeks or something, we don't know. But certainly surprised it was so low. So definitely over.
Yeah, you can get over 9.5 as well if you fancy double digits at plus 160, so closer to 2-1, and you could probably obviously go further. But yeah, I think I might be taking that line at the better odds at plus 160. At bang for a buck. I think we're all unanimous saying that the Rams will make the playoffs, or even money to make the playoffs. Again, that in itself, yeah, I think is good value. I can't believe the favourite to not make the playoffs. Obviously Vegas knows something we don't. I think. Naturally they would be favourite not to make the playoffs. So
Stafford signed a new contract as well. Like he's unhappy and they were thinking about getting rid of him or anything. But
odds. Obviously, we're odds with the bookmakers. Division winners plus 350. That might be a step too far given the strength of the San Francisco 49ers. Conference winners plus 1400 or 14-1 to get back to Super Bowl. They got to in 2021. Super Bowl winner 30-1.
Don't hate it.
I don't hate it as well. You've got enough players there that have been there and done it. A coach who's one of the top coaches in the NFL. 30-1 is crazy.
And what you do know is, if it gets to mid-season, they need a little push. Les Snead is not a conservative GM.
They will make those moves for sure.
Yeah, 30-1's a really nice price, I think.
Yeah, 30-1. Then conceivably, obviously, to win it all. But in the NFC side, like I say, in a one-off game, they can absolutely beat and could beat the Niners in a one-off game. Absolutely. And that's who you'd have to get past with, again, who they've got. I think it's a crazy price. A lot of love for the Rams here. What would be a good season for the Rams then? Let's say that. Joe, you answer that one for us, buddy. What would be a good season for the LA Rams?
I think they should aim for like playoffs and conference final. I think why not? I think with the players they've got, I think it's similar to last year. I think they, like I mentioned, they were just unlucky that they came against the Lions, who were a bit of a roll. And if they beat the Lions, then they were probably the favourites to get to the final. And who would know, like you said, against the 49ers. So I think a good season would be. I think if they miss the playoffs, I think that would be disappointing, especially with the players they've got. Age of Stafford, and I know that they're getting more youthful now, and a few players are retiring. But I still think it would be a disappointment if they did miss out on that playoffs.
Yeah.
Excellent. Good stuff. That brings us to the end of our LA Rams preview. We're going to head across and talk some San Francisco 49ers. We've got Paul Hope joining us from the 49er Faithful UK. And he's going to be talking us through the chances of the Niners in 2024. That's our thoughts on the Cardinals and Rams done for this NFC West preview. We're on to the reigning NFC West champions, the San Francisco 49ers. And we are joined by a very special returning guest, a good teams win, great teams cover. Paul Hope from the 49er Faithful UK. He's back and he's going to be guiding us through our 49ers preview. Paul, welcome back. It's always great to have you on. How are you doing, buddy?
No, thanks for having me. You're one of the few podcasts outside of my own that when you ask if I can come on, I always rejig stuff around. And as you said off air, just returned from a family holiday, and then you gently reminded me, and Tracy was like, another podcast, back into reality of NFL football, 49ers football. And yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Last time I saw you, Paul, it was going really well until about 27 seconds from the end of the game. So hopefully you'll be kind enough not to go into that one for me, because I've tried to erase that. We're into a new season now, everybody. We don't care about last year.
We won't mention. We'll try not to mention the score of the game too much in the result. But what a night that was! So we were, I got to attend the 49ers, 49er Faithful UK watch party for the Super Bowl 58 down at Elm Road in the Centenary Suite. What a night that was! What was it, 400-500 people there? It was absolutely fantastic. The guys were very kind to me as a Dallas Cowboys fan. But yeah, what an event. And it just kind of shows, I mean, let's opportunity to talk about the 49er Faithful UK. What a group, what a great group of people, fans, and be able to put on that sort of event. Did you envision, Paul, kind of when that involvement started with the 49er Faithful UK, that you'd be able to kind of do something like that?
No, I mean, my journey with the group, I found them in 2015. Like most NFL UK fans, to people listening, being a fan of the NFL in the UK, you kind of feel like it's a lonely existence. 6 o'clock comes, you plonk yourself on the sofa, you've got Red Zone on, you've got your fantasy teams. And then because obviously based in England, I have it, the office I work in, none of my colleagues like NFL. It's all English football, Premier League. And I'm sat there totally oblivious. So you go online and you find people like yourselves, and you're on Twitter, you're on social media. So I stumbled across League Howland and the 49er Faithful UK 2015. And it basically is a Facebook group for 49ers fans. And then what happened was people were like, we'd really like to watch a game together. Now, being a fan of a West Coast team, that isn't as straightforward as you would think, because obviously, one, we don't get many 6 o'clock games. And two, the NFL, as much as it's growing in the UK, you still can't just walk into a sports bar on a Sunday evening, especially when the Premier League's on, and watch football as we know it. So I suppose the success started, if you remember, the Saints 49ers game a couple of years ago, where George Kittle fought 5 or 6 defenders off, Robbie Gould's last second field goal.
Yeah.
As luck happened, Paul, we had a watch party up in Edinburgh at a sports bar, and there was a few of us diehard 49ers fans. There was a couple of Saints fans from the States. But I think the magnitude of that game, of how epic it was, it kind of, everybody suddenly was like, right, I've seen the footage online. You guys have done a good job of sharing. We want to come to the next one. And then you fast forward to 2020 when the 49ers themselves reach out. I still get goosebumps talking about this now as a fan of your team, to get an email to say, can we have a chat and talk about what we can do to help you grow the fan base in the UK? And you said it yourself, Paul. We welcomed you with open arms. You got the T-shirt welcome from Martin Hughes, which I won't mention, but that just shows the NFL as a community. You found out we were having a watch party in Leeds, and as a Dallas Cowboys fan, you felt you could turn up to a 49ers event, and we have other teams fans turn up. The Chiefs meet up in Newcastle, which you've mentioned. There's going to be other teams coming to that one. And I think watching football together in a sports bar in the UK just gives it that special feeling.
Yeah, it was an incredible atmosphere in obviously in the suite in Ellen Road in Leeds, and yeah, and like I say, for so long it was going so, but just incredible event to put on in terms of just and having that backing of the San Francisco 49ers due to their involvement in Leeds United as well, to kind of being able to kind of make all that happen, just fantastic. It just goes to show kind of what can be achieved for a lot of hard work and through kind of a lot of engagement. Just what the fan groups in the UK are capable of achieving. And I think you guys, from what I've seen anyway, you guys are the ones that lead the way with that and have done, like I say, an incredible job. And long may it continue. Like I say, we'll be at the event in Newcastle in October, rematch of the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. And I've no doubt that'll be another corker. What have you got going on kind of with, you've got the 49 Faithful UK show. When you finish with us this evening, you're going to be jumping on the live show that you've got. What have you got coming up from the show, and where can the people catch it?
So like you were saying before, I mean, for 49ers fans, we've got quite a good presence. The hashtags are on the screen at 49er Faithful UK. I am the social media guy. I'm the face behind the phone. I'm the one that's doing all the tweeting. I'm the one that's doing all the tagging. Lee Gowland is the president of the group, and he handed that over to me 2018, 2019, and we've just exploded to where we've got like links with the Niners now. So we have our own YouTube channel. So in season, we tend to have a lot more content. We do a preview of every game. We then do a review of the game. And a year ago, we started our live, which is at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night. And we've tried to bring that a little bit like Good Morning Football. So we go live. We have a few topics to discuss. But as you guys will know, anything can happen. News can break live on air. People in the chat can ask you questions. And that's gone from strength to strength. I mean, we hit 1,000 subs on Super Bowl Sunday, which was our target, which obviously there's that big push to get monetized. We've got a paid partnership with Power Brand Systems. We've got the links with the 49ers. I mean, a side note, you saw last year the 49ers hosted 40 of the 49er Faithful UK at Levi Stadium, in the Goldmine section. So all we had to pay for was our flights and accommodation. I mean, that was awesome. 40 of us at Levi Stadiums in one seating area watching the game. So I went on NBS Bay Area recently, and they asked me what my highlight of last year was. And I was like, the Buccaneers game. And the host was like, the Buccaneers game. I was like, it was my first ever trip to Levi's. There was 40 of us out there. So he was like, that's a good answer. That's a memory that'll stick long in my mind. But We have got a watch party coming up in London. I can't announce the venue yet because it hasn't been officially released. I'm just nervously awaiting a response from LNER because I booked my train tickets, Paul, when I found out the date. So it's for week 2 against the Vikings, which we always thought it would be. It's a 6 o'clock game. So the Niners are hosting an official watch party, which for those people listening, it means that last year we had Joe Staley join us. And when I say join us, he watched the game in the mosh pit with the 49ers faithful UK. He was flying the flag. He was drinking with the fans. Him and his wife, Carrie, were awesome. So the Niners tend to do a bit of a razzmatazz on game day when they host a watch party. You get freebies. They have a host who gets the crowd going. Weirdly enough, as you start to get more popular, I've seen a little bit of hate online from other teams' fan bases, and you think we're just a fan group who wants to watch football together. You know,
that's how you know you've made it.
Yeah, that's how you know you're doing some good stuff.
Once you get haters, yeah.
So we will be having a watch party in London at 6 p.m. Now, that one is predominantly for 49ers fans, but the one you mentioned in Newcastle, it just shows the community. So Brad from the Chiefs UK fan group reached out to me and said, look, Paul, we're going up to Newcastle for the rematch game in October. We've hired a sports bar. Do you guys want to come and watch it with us? So this is what we would call an unofficial meetup. This is just literally me, 20 others of the 49er faithful UK turning up in Newcastle with 20 or 30 of the Chiefs fans. Yourself said you're coming. My good friend Andy, who's a Lions fan. I think there's a Panthers fan, reached out to me, who was based in Newcastle today. So if you're in or around Newcastle on October the 20th, head up to Louis Liquor Bar in the big market. It's a free event. And literally, we're going to watch football together. And I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a corker. Good stuff. Yeah, and I see you've got that week two one in London as well, which should be real exciting. Taking advantage of that, is it the only early game they've got? The only 6 o'clock one?
We have two. So we have that one, and we have the one against the Buccaneers in November. But Lee announced it on our live 2 weeks ago. So straight away, I booked my hotel. And then I booked my tickets for my train tickets because I live in Middlesbrough. It's not exactly cheap to get to London. And then the next day, they announced the blooming train strike, didn't they? So I think that's the downside of when you're working. So the 49ers have announced the watch party, but they haven't told us the venue as such yet. So you're guessing, right, going to get to London, King's Cross, book a hotel. I think because America is so big compared to the UK, I think it's underestimated by Americans, the cost to travel. Like I said, I'm based in Middlesbrough. It isn't as straightforward to get to London, especially as I've just returned from Disneyland Paris. Dared look at my bank balance. That's all I'm going to say. But I think I'll get there. It'll be good. And I'm looking forward to what we've got going on this season.
Excellent. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into the preview then. We've got our little guide on the screen to help us. Thanks, Joe, again, for doing all the hard work in the background and putting it all together for us to make mine and Byron's life very easy. We're going to start with a little overview of 2023. We'll skip over one of the points, Paul, and we won't rest on that too much. Finished 12-5, first in the NFC West and number one seed in the playoffs. Fell to the Chiefs again at the Super Bowl in overtime, 25-22 in a heartbreaker. 4 players over 1,000 scrimmage yards. First time ever in the NFL that happened. And second in total offense, and CMC scooped up Offensive Player of the Year. And Brock was looking Purdy in his first full season. MVP candidate after successfully recovering from injury. How would you sum up, Paul, I guess in just a few short words, how would you sum up how 2023 went for the Niners?
It was Purdy good until about 27 seconds in that Super Bowl. I mean, for those people who may not know me, who are watching on your channel and listening, I'm always more of a positive kind of guy, glass half full. The season for me was epic. There's 32 teams in the NFL, and at this time of the year, there's only one team that's happy, and it just all happens to be the Kansas City Chiefs because they've got Patrick Mahomes. I'm not going to come on your show and say Patrick Mahomes isn't amazing, because he is. I mean, up until that kind of, I think it was you were sat next to me when we were in the second period of overtime, and I think they had a 4th and 2, and he broke out the pocket and Nick Bosa was chasing him down. It was only when he skipped past Bosa I thought, yeah, we're not winning this one. And that was literally that moment, because after that he just converted. I think there was another couple of plays and then obviously the touchdown, but we can't be too hard on ourselves. Brock Purdy wasn't fully fit. No, he's not a system quarterback for people watching. He did have an injury going into last season. So the fact that he put together the season that he put, it's interesting. Kyle Shanahan has been searching for his quarterback. We give up those draft picks for Trey Lance, obviously the Jimmy G stuff. And Mr. Irrelevant has fallen to us. And boy, oh boy, has he become Mr. Relevant. Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, was the MVP of the NFL last year. Yes, I'm biased, everybody, but you take CMC away from this team, it totally makes a difference. And we're looking good in the offseason, which I know is what we're going to get into. But yeah, first in the NFC West, I still stand by with the best team in the NFC. I don't think I've seen anything in this offseason that changes my mind. And I think we're good to go again ahead of this year, Paul.
Yeah, it's a great run and a great period that the Niners are in, I think, and just having kind of this glut of talent that they've got, but to just be there and thereabouts, I think, for the last few years and continue to be, I think I agree with. I don't think there's anything I've seen to suggest that there's going to be a drop off at any point. You know, I think there's going to have to be a disaster that strikes for that to happen. But yeah, I think, you know, we're rightly talking about one of the favourites to go win it all again. Yeah. Byron,
I mean, to sit in on there, Byron, I joined the 49ers fan base the year when the Ravens beat us. So I was experimenting with the NFL and I was working with a Bears fan at the time. And as luck happens, the Bears were playing the 49ers on Monday Night Football. And I thought, I can't support the Bears because he supports the Bears.
Yeah.
And I fell in love with Colin Kaepernick. And that year we went to the Super Bowl and we lost. And I thought, wow, what a team I've picked. We're going to be like this every year. And then, obviously, I went through Chip Kelly. I went through Jim Tomsula. I went through a 2-14 season where Brian Hoyer's thrown pick sixes in the first 7 seconds of a Monday Night Football game against the Rams. And I'm thinking, when is this team ever going to become relevant? So, yes, Niners fans have been spoiled in recent years. Kyle Shanahan came along, said, look, I'm going to make you relevant. And if you look at our record under Kyle Shanahan, we've either been in the NFC Championship game, we've either been in the Super Bowl. A lot of fans would trade places with my team right now. It's just, as you said, Byron, when you've made it, you do get a bit of hate. So,
yeah, I think most certainly would. We certainly would, as Dallas Cowboys fans, being Byron, we would definitely certainly trade places. And you
trade places, I'd trade head coaches.
Trade the whole thing.
Trade a lot of different things individually, yeah.
Well, to reassure you both, I've got a good friend, I'll name check him. Chris Pollard is a Dallas Cowboys fan based in Darlington. He is another reason I'm in the NFL. And when I lived in Darlington, he used to come to my house on a Sunday. Now, he's like most Cowboys fans, and I don't mean this in the wrong way. He's always confident in his team. He always thinks that your team are going to do well. But he does speak glowingly of the 49ers. And again, he looks out for our results. I look out for his results. So whenever we play, there's always a bit of friendly rivalry. And obviously, when I've mentioned I've connected with you, Paul, and you've turned up at the meetups, I have pointed him in your direction because, again, it's part of this community of connecting. So I'm not one of those Niners fans that is part of the historic rivalry. I know all about it, but for me, the only team that I dislike is the Seahawks. But that's purely
I think there is a bit of a UK thing to that as well. Like, I don't hate many of the traditional rivalries. Like, I can't stand Giants or Eagles fans because they're obnoxious. Washington, I think everyone kind of disliked during the Snyder era, but nowadays I don't really care for Washington either way. And the Niners, I love watching Kyle Shanahan teams. Like, yeah, I want Dallas to beat them when they play them, but man, otherwise, if I get to watch whoever's at QB, McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo, like, what kind of sociopath are you if you don't enjoy watching it? Like, it's, yeah, I think not having that, like, being brought up as a Cowboys fan, maybe, like, you don't have that, like, intrinsic thing of, like, you've got to hate these and hate this. It's like, you know, you'll learn to like who you like, I think, more than it being passed along.
And you share, Paul, Key, Joe was just mentioning, he's listening in the back there, that's the same year. The same year you picked up with the Niners, it's the same year that Joe picked up with the Niners as well. So there you go. The Beyonce Bowl, as it was, when the lights went out in New Orleans. Let's have a look at some off-season headlines. I think there's one big story that we certainly want to get your thoughts on, Paul, for sure. Is it Brandon Bayuk? Great pun there. Whether that was Byron or Joe that came up with that. Disgruntled receiver missing camp and making headlines. Will he or won't he be traded? We'll get into that in a second. Trent Williams. Trent Williams looking for that gold O-line. The biggest, is that the biggest? Is the big O-line potentially the biggest issue this year? That deal still needs to be done. Armstead was cut. The biggest headline from a defensive perspective. And Nick Sorensen replaced Steve Wilkes at DC. With the losses, what should we expect defensively? Let's start with Brandon Ayuk. Of course, that's the story that just won't go away because it's still not been resolved yet. Where are we? It's almost every couple of days where he's being traded or he's closer to staying and there's a deal. Where's your head, or where are your thoughts on this, Paul, and what do you think will be kind of the resolution with Brandon Ayuk?
The NFL with the salary cap, it's one of the reasons I think most UK fans are intrigued. You know, I don't do English football, but I listen to the conversation about Man City, Chelsea, Man United splashing the cash. You can't do that in the NFL. And obviously, we've got a rookie quarterback drafted in the 7th round. That doesn't even count against the salary cap. So Niners fans have kind of known for a few years that this moment was coming where somebody was going to go out the door. Now, Ayuk is one of my personal favourites. I love the connection he had with Trey Lance. Last year on the 49er Faithful UK, we started doing a little bit more in-depth analysis. So I started watching game tape a bit more and looking for things. And Brandon Ayuk as a route runner is unbelievable. And then go to watch him live. I mentioned that game, the 76-yard bomb that Purdy threw to him was unbelievable. Now, Ayuk wants to be paid, as most wide receivers. He's got an ego. I think at the moment, the last that I checked in, because I've been away for a few days, is the close. It's literally, it could be to do with guaranteed money. Now, Jed York comes in for a lot of stick from some fans, but over the last few years, he's put his hand in his pocket. And I think that's the key. When you look at these contracts and you look at the numbers thrown around, the guaranteed money needs to be there. So obviously the Niners need Jed York to write another check. I think we're just frustrated as Niners fans because over the last few years, we've had it with Kittle, we've had it with Warner, then we had it with Bosa, and it seems to be like and Debo.
Yeah.
Now, Dan Harris, who was a good friend of all of ours, I remember doing a show with him a few years ago when the Debo stuff was kicking about, and I was like, I can't see it. And I'm the same with Ayuk. If he was going to get traded, it would have been before the draft. Yeah. We are in win now mode. Draft picks for next year are no good. Now, unless the Steelers are giving us TJ Watt and some picks and a load of money, you know, again, that quote might come back to haunt me, but the Steelers haven't got anyone outside of TJ Watt that I would want. And I think maybe there's a little bit of kind of posturing between the Niners, Ayuk. At the moment, I've come on the show planning for Ayuk being my wide receiver one. I think he deserves to get paid. And I think it touches upon with the Williams stuff we'll get on to in a moment. I personally wouldn't play him on the 5th-year option because, yes, if you're looking at fantasy football, paying Brandon Ayuk $40 million for 1 year, it's a no-brainer. But if you watch Jerry Maguire, he's going to be going into that year with his Rod Tidwell. He'll be thinking of next year, and he isn't putting his body on the line with no guaranteed money. And then do you want that kind of disgruntled receiver around the group? What has helped Ayuk is in OTAs, training camps, preseason friendlies. Other than Debo, no one really stood out as a Niners wide receiver. So I think the deal gets done at something like 28 million, 4 or 5 year deal, and it's guaranteed money. But that's where I stand anyway.
Yeah, I think it's helped the Niners leverage as well that, you know, again, we don't have official confirmation on it yet from insiders, you know, they accepted offers from the Patriots and the Browns, and he doesn't want to go there. So there's obviously not 32 teams that he wants to play for. And San Francisco is obviously one of them. I completely agree with your take that if it was getting done, it was getting done in March or April. I think it'd have to be some crazy overpay to trade him now. My slight worry is that he hasn't been training. And I mean, that's a huge one, obviously, for the Dallas as well. You know, Jamar Chase at the Bengals, like, I hate when you want to be up and running by now, certainly the end of August. So hopefully it does get done in the next few days. It does seem to be getting closer. But yeah, I think that he's kind of shown his hand a little by not accepting the Patriots, not accepting Cleveland. Like, I think it is a short list of teams that he wants to play for. And obviously, San Fran are in the driving seat because he's already there. Just need to get to that number.
To give him some credit, Paul and Byron, the Patriots offered him 32 million. He said no. Yeah, the Browns, exactly. I believe, offered him a lot of money. So I don't think it's about wanting to be that. I want 32, 33. I think if with the noises to be believed, I think the Niners offered him 26, 27 before the wide receiver market went up. And I think we just naively thought, right, the Niners tend to do their business in training camp. But what happened was the draft came along and then all these teams started paying receivers. And then the agent's like, hang on a minute, I want a bit more. But like you said, maybe once the deal's done, it'll all come out. I think it's been good to see him hold in. It's been good to see him at training camp. is a worry, as Byron mentioned there. We saw it with Bosa. Bosa didn't hit the ground running because I think we signed the contract 10 minutes before we played the Steelers last year, and Bosa wasn't the same Nick Bosa. Now that could have played into costing Steve Wilkes' job, because if Nick Bosa's not playing at an elite level, what impact does that have on your cornerbacks and your secondary? But I think the Ayuk news, we're getting close, Paul, to be honest.
Just feel to be going that way now. And it's interesting because the Niners, to trade him as well, it's going to have to be something. They're going to need a ready-made wide receiver one, and not everybody's got one of them. We heard that Amari Cooper might have been part of the Cleveland bundle, offer package, just you can't be in that position. So I think Niners will get it done. I agree, and keeping him and keeping all those players intact is key for the Niners. Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. You mentioned about Steve Wilkes going. Nick Sorensen's in, replace Steve Wilkes. What are you expecting to see out of the defense in 2024, Paul?
So Sorensen's been promoted within. From all accounts, he was the player's choice. Interestingly, Staley coming across is what piqued my interest, because if you think back to when Staley was the Rams defensive coordinator, that's where Jalen Ramsey was at his elite level. He played the star role in that defense where he was moved around. And out of training camp, it's looking like Lenore has kind of been slotted into that role. Staley's been brought into. Maybe Wilkes was brought in last year because our secondary and our cornerbacks weren't great. And the talk was, right, Steve Wilkes is going to come in. And I think Warner has said the linebackers felt a shift. They were used to Robert Saleh. They were used to D'Amico Ryans, former NFL players, former linebackers on the sideline. I love a good gif. And there's plenty of gifs of D'Amico and Salah showing that energy. And with Wilkes being up in the booth, I just don't think it transitioned. I think it was a case of he was the right man for the job, just didn't fit the system that Shanahan had. And you need to be ruthless in the NFL. So Shanahan has fired him, one and done. He's promoted Sorensen, who is officially the defensive coordinator. But I think Staley will have a lot more say than what has been out there. I mean, officially he's the assistant head coach, head of defense, whatever that means. But the bits I've seen from training camp, Staley's been working very closely with the cornerbacks, the secondary. It's been great to see Bosa at OTAs. It's not something he normally does. Training camp's been good. I think you'll see a similar defense to what we had under D'Amico Ryans than we had with Steve Wilkes. I know we touched upon the Super Bowl. We saw Shanahan having to throw the timeout flag on there because he wasn't happy with what Wilkes was calling. And I think you go back to that front four being hungry, get after the quarterback. It's what we've been known for. Obviously, Drake Jackson is on IR, so that's caused a bit of worry. But we've brought some, people in. We've brought Malik Collins has been brought in. Gross Matters, Leonard Floyd, Jordan Elliott is looking pretty decent in that kind of mix. So as Niners fans, we are feeling quite confident that the defense is going to be back to that. You mentioned at the start of the show, the offense was top 3. The defense was not. And I think if the defense can even be top 10 with this offense, I think it's a scary prospect for the NFL. I mean, against the run last year, I think we were 26th overall. That's not good enough for the 49ers. The Lions showed that was the key to beat us. And they very nearly did it until some adjustments at half-time. So I think we need to be better against the run. And I think we're good at scheming up against our opponents in division. But I am a little bit nervous because the Seahawks have got rid of Cheaty Pete. And they've brought in the Ravens coordinator. So, the Rams have had some injuries in training camp. But at the moment, as it stands, I'm feeling pretty confident with Sorensen. From what I've seen of him, Paul, he's ticking the boxes in the right way.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. And like I say, just a step up for that defense when an already potent offense. And you're right. I mean, we're already scared of the Niners as it is, Paul, so we don't need any more scaring as Cowboys fans. But yeah, for the rest of the NFL, a bit more to fear. But let's have a look at the moves then. Key moves. Mentioned some of them already. So yeah, Leonard Floyd, we've mentioned. Malik Collins in on the trade as well. Jordan Elliott that you mentioned. And the draft, very interesting as well. Ricky Pearsall went 31 from Florida. Towards the end of that first round. What are you hearing in terms of kind of the impact for Pearsall? Is a very, very interesting prospect. One that maybe I thought, I'm not sure, end of the first round, top of the second, I suppose, is very much the same thing once you kind of get past pick 20, 25. Was that an area you felt that the Niners needed to strengthen, wide receiver? And what have you kind of heard and seen out of Pearsall so far in training camp and pre-season?
So just before we answer that, I will go on about the Trent Williams. I think the Williams deal will get done. It's basically he's got zero guaranteed money on his contract at the moment. He is key to our offensive line, and I think it's just a case of he needs to get some guaranteed money. I think the hope was the Niners would have won a Super Bowl ring by now, and he could have retired. So that's why he's holding out. The wide receiver room, pick 31. A lot of Niners fans were not happy. They wanted someone in the offensive line. But it just goes to show, if you trust the process, you might have heard of, we drafted an offensive lineman, Dominic Puny, in the 4th round. Number 77, you heard it here first. He has looked awesome in training camp, and he has looked awesome in the preseason games. So it just goes to show that's the reason we took Purcell at 31, because not many teams had the offensive lineman on the 4th round. Shanahan never drafts an offensive lineman in the 1st round. The knock on Purcell is he hasn't been here, Paul. He didn't miss a game in college. So most Niners fans were hopeful that this young kid was going to come in, hit the ground running. You've all saw the videos kicking around after we drafted him. He's route running. He's working out with Tyreek Hill. But he's had a few hamstring injuries. He hasn't really participated. I think his stock has fallen a little bit. I do think he was maybe drafted as an insurance policy to if Ayuk goes, and maybe he's one of those pieces you pick up for down the road. You know, he's going to make the 53-man roster because you don't cut your 1st round pick. But the Jacob Cowan, who was pick 135, he's one that you could keep an eye out for the new kick returns. The kick return hasn't been great in pre-season. No Niners fans want to see Debo back there. Trent Taylor and Ronnie Bell haven't really set the world on fire with it. I think you'll see Kyle Juszczyk as one of the blockers, and you might see someone as Purcell or Cowan in that 2nd role, and that may be where they make a name for themselves. Ronaldo Green has been awesome in training camp, as has Malik Mustafa, who's a safety, but built like a linebacker. And he's one of, you saw he put that massive hit in the Titans game on the goal line. I think their quarterback was running around and he's come through. So as Joe's put there in the chat, Green might start nickel. There's high hopes for him. And it was a solid draft for Niners fans. I was buzzing because I correctly got Isaac Guerendo on my mock draft. He was the only one. You could take the wins where you can. He is a speedy running back, Kyle Shanahan kind of project piece. But again, he's been injured. So I just hope he makes the roster.
Yeah, I mean, is there anyone we should look? We know the names, we know the stars, of course we do. Who else should we be looking out for in this 49ers team that could make an impact in 2024 that isn't maybe a household name already?
Well, I said there, Dominic Puny has been the one. Now, like you guys, I'm based in the UK. I'm not an expert, but what I am is plugged into YouTube. I don't do any other sport other than the NFL. It drives my missus crazy if I'm washing the dishes or making the tea and she'll see some man talking about an offensive line, or she'll see Baldy's breakdown on YouTube and she's like, this isn't healthy, Paul. You need more hobbies. So when I get the chance to come and talk football with like-minded people, I'll take it. But Puny is the one at the moment, I'd say. He wasn't supposed to be as good as what he's been. And Brad Graham, who was the head of the SF Niners, he's an offensive lineman expert. He works with the Niners. He's been glowing about Puny, as has Brian Baldy, who does the Baldy's breakdowns. So if you don't want to listen to Paul Hope from Middlesbrough, go listen to them guys. So they know more than me.
But yeah, look, if Brian Balding's shouting out, like that's a pretty good guy to be shouting out.
He knows all line play.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's not a sexy pick. I think you were expecting me to say Ricky Purcell's going to be the next Tyreek Hill, or the 7th round draft pick in Brock Purdy. But sometimes with this team we've got, the offensive pieces there, CMC, Deebo Samuel is looking healthy. He's looking a little bit slimmed down. He's changed to number 1. There's a lot of talk that maybe Deebo's playing for his future, and it's shown in training camp. Obviously, he had his own contract issues a couple of years ago. Brock Purdy, to find out he wasn't fully fit, and this is his first off-season. It's been nice as a Niners fan not to have quarterback controversy going into a season. Brock is QB1. He's bulked up himself. He's got the command of the offense. And like you said, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, our offense, I don't think you see anyone break into that, but it would be good to see Puny maybe cement that right guard slot, especially with Burford not being great over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, talking about Dominic Puny as well, Jared Kingston, who was a tackle in college and is a guard for the 49ers as well. This is a Josh Norris from Underdog start. He noticed this in 2023 before the 2023 draft. Offensive linemen who do a 4.47 short shuttle or better at the NFL Combine. There's 24 drafted between 2010 and 2022. Of those 24 players, they started 84% of their games. And this is like Jason Kelsey's in the 6th round, David Questenberry in the 6th round, Charles Leno in the 7th round. Both of those players hit those marks. In preseason, Jared Kingston's given up 1 pressure on 61 pass blocks. I think they've nailed it with those two there. It's, a bit of a cheat code to look at those 4.47 short shuttles in the Combine. But if it seems like someone's noticed it, which is Josh Norris at Underdog, and the NFL's listening to it, and the Niners got 2 of the, I think it was 5 this year.
Yeah, I've seen that, Byron. I mean, as well, if you look at our scheme, we do a lot of outside zone, and we need them to shift. So I'll be honest, when I saw that stat and I was reading up on it, my missus was like, what on earth are you going on about this free cone shuffle thing? And what does it mean?
Yeah.
And, you'll both chuckle. I've started coaching under 11s flag football.
Nice.
And you notice certain things, like you were saying now, the drills, the speed. And I always say, whatever level of football you play, speed kills.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not an accident that these two have come in. They've showed the physical traits, and now you're putting that in a system where Shanahan likes to. He doesn't like to put a lot of stock on the offensive line, but basically they all work as a unit. And if you can plug Trent Williams back into that with these two, so yeah, he's another name that you rightly mention now. But when we drafted them, a lot of people were like, oh, 4th and 5th round, 6th round defensive linemen, and you're like, I think we were spoiled because Bill Belichick took that lad. Was it pick 31 or something a couple of years ago? Where he was like on people's. Yeah, he was like, I'm taking them in the 1st round.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show it doesn't matter where you take them.
Just got to play.
Absolutely, yeah. If they're going to play, they're going to make a difference for sure. And it looks like they've got some great value ones there, the Niners. Let's have a look at the odds. We are a gambling show at heart, after all. Vegas seem to think the Niners are going to be somewhere around 11 or 12 wins, Paul. Over under 11.5 is the line. Where's your feeling? Where do you kind of think the Niners are going to finish in terms of their regular season record?
So I did a show with our good friend Andy Davies from across the pod, and we went through win-loss, and I was at 13-4. So I'm around there, 12-5, 13-4, similar to Vegas. I think with the team to beat in the NFC West, I think we do get that top seed in the NFC as it stands today. But I think we're looking at a 13-4 when I've looked at the games and the way they fall. Obviously, all things being well, you can't look out for health issues and injuries, but I think I'm slightly better than the Vegas odds, but I am biased at the end of the day.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm similar. I think I've got the Niners down at 12 wins, so I'm kind of there with you, Paul, as well. It's just the nature of being division winning. Your schedule is tough because you play you play a lot of other division winners, and you get to play us as well. But yeah, it's a tough schedule. But yeah, I've got them at 12 wins. I can't see them any less than that. Of course, then with 12 or 13 wins, they'll make the playoffs. From what we're saying. Who do you think you've mentioned? And you won't hear me, Byron, or Joe argue with you. Yeah, I think we agree that the Niners are the team to beat in the NFC as a whole. Paul, who do you see as kind of the Niners' closest competition in the conference?
It's very similar to last year. I think the Lions will be there or thereabouts. I think the Packers showed Jordan Love. Obviously, they've gone all in with his contract and they've picked up some key pieces in the draft. Yourselves are not a million miles away. It's kind of bittersweet seeing Trey Lance do some good stuff for you guys because we were all in on him. Might be a bit bittersweet if he does actually upcirc Dak, but I think the normal teams that you're looking at there, you're looking at the Lions, the Packers, the Cowboys, and then down from there, I'm not sure where, could the Falcons come and surprise somebody? Could the Vikings, if McCarthy had stayed injury free and things like that? But I think the Lions, Packers, and Cowboys are the ones that I'm kind of thinking, right, they're our closest rivals. Keep an eye on them games. And like you said, we play all you guys, and that's another reason why I think that'll where I'm going with that. I think Joe's put there the Eagles. I can't say that, Joe. I've got a strong dislike for the Eagles after what's happened in recent years. The NFC Championship game got injured, and then last year, I love the fact we went into Philadelphia and absolutely punched them in the mouth. But I don't think they'll be as good. They've lost some key pieces. They've lost some offensive coaches, but I'll put my neck on the line. So Lions, Cowboys, and the Packers are the teams I'm worried about the most.
Packers is a shout, yeah, for sure. They're young guns. Let's have a look at just the last few pieces of the odds. Massively odds on favourite to win the NFC West. No surprise there. Favourites to win the NFC as a whole as well, just short of 3-1. You can get plus 240 or close to 3-1 in British odds, and then Super Bowl winner 11-2, 5.5-1, right there with the Chiefs. I mean, it might be a daft question. What's kind of what's got to be the minimum for the Niners this year, Paul? Kind of given where we're at and where they've been the last few years.
See, a few Niners fans in our group think it has to be Super Bowl or bust. And maybe because I say new, I've only been a Niners fan since 2011, 2012. I don't see it that way. My good friend Andy Norton, who was a Lions fan, had never seen the Lions in the playoffs. And last year's team got to the NFC Championship. But like that first playoff when he was texting me, over the moon, he'd finally seen the Lions in the playoffs. And you look at some of the teams outside of the playoffs and you think, we are spoiled as Niners fans, Of course, the dream is number 6. We want that Lombardi. I've seen 3 Super Bowl losses as a fan. You were there up in Leeds with me last year. I didn't feel as bad when the lights came on in that game as I did the previous Super Bowl loss, because I think the previous one against the Chiefs, because we were winning so comprehensively in that fourth quarter, and it took an absolute dynamite of a throw from Mahomes to Hill, and then it just kind of quickly flipped. Where that one last year, I felt we went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, and literally they landed one more knockout blow. And that's a difference sometimes. And I think I said earlier, I just need our defense to be better. If we'd had a top 5 defense going into that game against the Chiefs, and again, for all the hype of Mahomes, Kelsey, it was Spagnuolo and the defensive side of the ball that won Chiefs the Super Bowl. That play where I think Burford misses the block and Ed Rusher gets through and he throws Purdy off, and then you just watch the all 22 and you see Brandon Ayuk stood wide open in the end zone. If Purdy had one more second, the Super Bowl's ours. So it's those fine margins of the NFL. So I don't think we need to do a lot different on the offensive side of the ball. I just need to see more from our defense. And I think if we do end up being against the Chiefs again, as it stands, they have the upper hand, reigning back-to-back champions. They've got the best quarterback in the league. You just like to hope, and if Brad is listening, just give me one. I just want one, Paul, and I'll be happy.
One. Excellent. Well, keep putting themselves in that position. They're going to get over the line eventually, aren't they? They keep getting to those games, those big games. They're going to come out the right side. One of these times for sure. So close last year, as we've discussed. Paul, thank you ever so much for coming on. You're obviously we love having you on here at Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. Hopefully, we'll get to have you on during the season at some point. We'll kind of check in, see how things are going. Niners wise, you can hopefully come on and be one of our guest pickers over the course of the season, and we'll see you. Yeah, we will see you for that Chiefs Niners game up in Newcastle. Just give the people a reminder. Where can we follow you? Where can we follow the 49er Faithful UK?
Well, before I plug myself, last year we had Andy on from the Lions ahead of the Lions game, and a lot of our fan base really enjoyed having a rival fan on. So you'll be pleased to know that I've already got you earmarked in the week we play the Cowboys, because it'd be good to get you on the show to kind of give an insight into what you're looking ahead to for that game. And I do like the crossovers. As much as I'm a Niners fan, I do like to step out of the Niners bubble and talk to other NFL fans. And plus, it makes our job easier, because if you're coming on the show, you can talk about the Cowboys and I don't have to go and watch the game tape and make my notes. But if you want to follow me, I'm quite active on social media. So my handle's there at Paul_Hope10. No, that's not a Jimmy G reference. My birthday's the 10th of August. And believe it or not, there's 9 of the Paul Hopes. So when I set up for my Twitter account, I kept giving me Paul Hope 1, no, gone. Paul Hope 2, gone. And I got to 10 and I settled. And then we're at 49er Faithful UK. So like I said, if you are a Niners fan listening and you want to get involved, just drop me a DM and I'll point you in the right direction. And thank you for having me on. It's been a blast.
Yeah, always a pleasure. Make sure you go check out the 49er Faithful show as well, the live show on the Wednesday, and the recorded shows as well. You don't have to be a 49er fan to watch. Like I say, I drop in and watch them and interact as well. It's a fantastic show, so make sure you go and watching and supporting Paul and the guys as well. We're going to move on. That's the end of the Niners. We're going to move to the Seattle Seahawks. We've got our very, very special guest. We've got returning guest Bo joining us. He was on last time live at a Seattle Seahawks draft watch party that he dialed us into on draft night, which was awesome. So we're going to hear from Bo and his thoughts on the Seattle Seahawks. There we go. Bit of a glitch, but we're up and running. Just a quick shout out. Thanks to Paul Hope from the 49er Faithful UK, just on our 49ers part of the show there. Great to chat with Paul. And yeah, some fantastic insight on the San Francisco 49ers. We're now on to our fourth team and the last team for the NFC West. And we're joined by another friendly face and returning guest to Good Teams Win Great Teams cover. Bo Crouch has joined us. Last time we saw Bo, he was live from a Seattle Seahawks draft party on draft night. It was awesome. Bo, much quieter surroundings this time, but welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me back. And there's no doubt it is significantly quieter. I can actually hear you guys. It's amazing.
That'll make for a different appearance. And you're going to be our expert on the Seattle Seahawks. But you're a very busy man. You've got lots going on across your channels and across other shows you've been appearing on. You just mentioned that you've been doing it'll be 8 hours of recording today that you would have done by the time it's all said and done. What have you got coming up, and where can we catch you?
Yeah, so I mean, on my YouTube channel at Football-Talk, and on Roku TV 5 days a week. So I mean, we are constantly running.
Yeah, busy man for sure, but make sure you go give Bo a follow and catch his content. It's fantastic stuff. This is definitely a man who knows ball for sure. Bo, yes, Seattle. Let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. What an interesting year this is going to be. Bit of a change for the Seahawks with Pete Carroll no longer being there, but let's get into it. Let's have a look first at how 2023 went. Hopefully you'll be able to see our wonderful on-screen guide there. Thanks again, Joe, for organising. Seahawks in 2023. Let's just have a quick overview of it. Some headlines from the season. Finished 9-8, third in the NFC West. Stuttering season in Seattle on the outside of the playoffs looking in. On one note, on the Seattle Seahawks 2023 season, all their losses came against teams with a winning record. In fact, only one came against a team that didn't make the playoffs. The Bengals, all of the losses did, and all the losses were against teams with a winning record. And there were some leaks in the Pacific Northwest with the Seahawks having the 31st ranked rush defense. Bo, how would you sum up how 2023 went for the Seahawks?
Yeah, I mean, obviously these numbers speak volumes. The defense had been bad for years, right? They've been a bottom 5 defense for the last 5 years. And the defensive numbers were compounded by the fact that almost their entire offensive line got hurt in game 1 against the Rams. You lose both tackles at halftime. You end up losing a guard, in the third quarter. So they didn't end up with their desired starting front 5 until week 15. You're not going to win a lot of games like that. Because, I mean, when you looked at the Cardinals and the Rams the year before, they both had big injuries on that offensive line. And what happened to both those teams? They were horrendously bad. So, you can't expect a team to be good with bad offensive line. That being said, there were still a lot of things that they didn't do well that in games they could have won. The Bengals come to mind. That was a winnable game. They didn't play particularly well, and then they end up with, DK throwing one of their corners to the ground, getting a 15-yarder, and killing a drive that they were rapidly moving down the field with the ability to go ahead in that game. Then you look at the Cowboys. That was another game that they had opportunities to win, and they just got in their own way more than anything else. So this was a team that could have had a better record despite the fact that offensive line was terrible, and they were running 13 personnel, which means they had 3 tight ends, 2 of which they were using as blockers because their offensive line was hammered. So, I mean, there were ways for this team to have been successful last year, but the fact that they ended up with a winning record was kind of a surprise anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think all things considered, they played fairly well. One of the things that people are kind of sleeping on moving into this year that you didn't really get to see last year because of that offensive line is, if you remember the year before, they were a top 5 scoring offense, right? In 22. You go into last year, they weren't, but if you're running for your life the whole time, it's hard to score points.
Yeah. You
come into this year, most of those guys that were in that top 5 scoring offense are still on this team. So, it's encouraging for what this team can be.
So, yeah, I think So to end up with a winning record in spite of all of that went wrong, particularly on the lines, the difficulty in being able to stop the run in particular, and then the offensive line, how banged up that was for 90% of the year. I think when taking a step back, a pretty positive season. As mentioned, teams in similar situations haven't got close to that. So, yeah, I think it says a lot about kind of where the Seahawks are as a whole. Byron, any sort of just quick shout-outs on the 23 season for Seattle?
Yeah, I think, like I said, coming away with a winning record was surprising, and I think, both touched on it, with the 13 personnel, the tight ends coming into block the entire season, it felt like really. And, I don't know how you feel about Geno Smith, Bo, but you'll probably struggle to find a bigger Geno fan than me anywhere in the Americans. Since he got to Seattle, I think he's been one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Last year, there was that great clip of Aaron Donald just walking through going without hindrance through the Seattle O-line. And, I can't remember exactly what it was. Geno yelled now, was like, "Oh my God, oh fucking hell." So it was something like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. It was, "Oh my God."
Yeah. And that kind of summed it up to me. If you get Geno Smith protected, like you said, that offense in 2022 was top 5, and that was with Marquise Goodwin as the wide receiver 3. JSN is, light and day upgrade on that, regardless of how his rookie season went.
And you have
I love Jake Bobo. Yeah,
fourth option. Right? And the thing that's funny about that 31st ranked rush defense, another stat that would have been good if you were really trying to bury the Seahawks in this segment is if you'd have done passing plays across the middle.
Yeah.
Because they were all completions and they were all 10 plus yards. Whether it was a seam or a cross, it was successful every time because our linebacker play was horrendous. So actually, thanks for not putting it up there.
Yeah, look, we're nice guys, but we're not trying to bury the Seahawks. We've no beef with the Seahawks. Let's have a look into some off-season headlines for what's been going on. And the big one was Pete Carroll gone, end of an era. It's going to be weird not seeing Pete Carroll on the sideline for sure. But
hopefully Mike McDonald chews gum at least.
Yeah, hopefully that would carry that on. Ravens defensive coordinator Mike McDonald comes in as head coach. That's been the biggest piece business. Leonard Williams signs on again, 3 years, $64.5 million. So was traded from the Giants previously. Signs that contract for $64.5 million. Important for that defensive line. We just talked about his potential weakness against the run. Are there plans for life after Geno? Might be reading too much into this trade, but traded into for quarterback Sam Howell from the Washington Commanders. Have the Seahawks got themselves a D-line difference maker, Byron Murphy taken with the 16th overall pick, and Ryan Grubb is in to replace Shane Waldron as offensive coordinator. First of all, Bo, got to talk about the big change. Carroll out, Pete Carroll out, Mike McDonald in. What do you make of the hire?
Yeah, so I like the hire. Right. There was only 1 year left on Pete Carroll's deal anyway. Right. And the team had slowly trended down, and the defense, like we said before, was a bottom 5 defense over the last 5 years anyway. So it makes sense that they would have been thinking to make a move. I thought they were going to let him finish out his contract, but they didn't. Then they did some kind of bizarre action in the way that they essentially made it so that he couldn't coach somewhere else. They're like, "You're fired, but you're going to be in an advisory role." Yeah. And, whatever that was supposed to mean. And really, I think that was you can't be our coach, but you can't coach against us. Right. So you're going to be in the room. And, there was a radio interview. I don't know if you guys ended up seeing it or not, but it was yesterday here in Seattle. And Carroll is officially going to go and coach at not coach, but he's going to teach at USC. And so he is moving on. And probably the weirdest part of the interview that was on KJR radio was that he actually didn't communicate with McDonald at all or the team. He said his only interaction was they ran into each other once in a parking lot and, just kind of traded pleasantries and kept it moving. And I think that's weird. That is a very weird dynamic for a guy that was supposed to be in an advisory role. So, but that being said, I'm interested to hear what Carroll is going to be doing at USC, because they didn't actually say what he's going to be teaching or anything like that. Just that generically in the spring of 25, he's going to be teaching at USC. And so, let the speculation begin. But when it comes to the Hawks currently, I do like the hire. If anything, them adding all of these 1 year, prove it guys on this defense, if they can be decent, right? Like if they can be average, just the 16th best defense, right? That's a huge step forward. You pair that with an offense that was a top 5 scoring offense, and say it's not even as good. Say somehow with better personnel, they're worse, right? So say they're top 10. So if they're top 10 and have a middle of the road defense, that sounds like it can be a wild card team to me.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in this age now where kind of you're probably looking at 9 wins. 9 wins probably going to be enough to get in. Yeah, 9 odd and 10 for certain. I know Seahawks missed out with 9 last year, but 9 might get you in. So that is possible. I would talk about Byron Murphy quick second, if that's okay. Obviously, we shared the pick on draft night as it was happening. It's been obviously a few months since then. Obviously, this D-line needs to be, obviously, and the defense as a whole needs to be stout against the run. It was a killer last year. Can Byron Murphy be the start of that, kind of up front in the middle?
I mean, he should be, right? They were able to do some things on this defensive line. They moved some guys out that weren't necessarily great when it comes to safeties, right? They finally move on from Jamal Adams, who has not been available, has been a huge issue. Also, he's just kind of terrible in coverage. Like that really, even though he's listed as a safety, he's not. He's a linebacker. He should have just embraced that. But, at the end of the day, I think they did enough on this defense, including adding guys like Byron Murphy and signing Williams. And I mean, all of those things had to happen to help shore up a defense that, again, was just bad. Now, to touch on your life after Geno, Sam ain't it.
Yeah.
So I was here at the Seahawks practices, right? So I got to watch a lot of Sam Howell going through the motions. And the biggest thing is he was missing wide open guys. He let sailing balls in practice. And what's the main thing with practice? You're not allowed to hit anybody. There's no real defense. If you can't hit your guys with no defense, I don't feel super stoked about your ability to throw the ball. Now, if you've watched him in preseason, he's a gamer because he's played well in the preseason games. But, at the same time, we're talking about preseason, which means he's throwing the ball against defenses that are probably working at target in about a month. So, I don't know how good you can feel. This is the way I look at preseason. If you do bad things, it looks bad.
Yeah.
If you do good things, you're like, well, you're supposed to.
Yep.
Right. Like it's something that an analogy I made on a show earlier today. It's like, Alabama, right? When they play Temple, they're supposed to beat the brakes off Temple. Right. And if they beat them by 60, you're supposed to do that. If it's close, people are like, ooh, man, something happened there. If they somehow lose, they're like, oh man, the season's over, fire everybody. It's doom and gloom, right? And so that's sort of the way I look at preseason is if you shine, cool. Yeah, okay. Like you're playing against guys that aren't the best. But if you don't, man, that looks bad because you're still playing against guys that probably won't be on a roster.
For sure. And like I say, with that, it's just interesting to see something with Geno now coming into his 3rd year. It's a start for the Seahawks. It'd be interesting to see how it goes because he has been so good for the last couple of years. And everybody counted him out, I think, in terms of obviously that start he had, apart from Byron. Everybody had counted him out in terms of obviously how his career
right back though.
But Byron's not wrong. Like you should feel good about Geno. and I'm not a huge Geno fan, but what did he do in 22? He set the Seahawks single season passing record. I mean, you can't be a scrub and do that because you're still playing NFL defenses all year, right? So now people can say, oh, it was a one-off. But when you figure that offensive line was as bad as it was, you know what he didn't do is lead the league in sacks. So he found a way to not get tackled. Now, was he under pressure the whole time? No question. But he found a way to not get sacked, and that's huge.
And you compare that to life after Geno. As you can tell, I didn't write that headline. Sam Howell with a poor offensive line looked, and it was his first year as a starter. I don't want to say he can never be an NFL quarterback. I don't think he will be, truthfully. But again, the difference between someone like Geno, who's cerebral, who knows the game, who can get rid of the ball quickly, whether that's a throw or bounce, it's better than a sack. And Sam Howell, who, man, by the end of last season, he was a walking interception machine. He's getting sacked he was getting sacked 7 times a game at points of the season. So,
but he didn't see ghosts.
Yeah, he didn't see the defensive lineman coming either, though, which was unfortunate. Might have been better to see everything rather than nothing.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like I say, we talked a lot. Early part of the season, we talked a lot of positives around Sam Howell. He was in a tough situation, and he seemed to do okay. But I think he just got shot as the season went on in Washington. It was rough for him. But let's talk about the change at OC. Obviously, Shane Waldron gone, Ryan Grubb in. What are you expecting to see out of Ryan Grubb's offense in Seattle?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we get to see a lot of what we saw with the University of Washington, right? The Huskies were a very dynamic offense, and I would expect to see that because McDonald is a defensive guy. He's going to be calling the defense, so he's going to lean on Grubb to do exactly what he's supposed to do. I think the only thing I kind of disagree with a lot of the perception for Shane Waldron is people were like, oh, he was unimaginative and it was very predictable offense and all of this. How creative can you be when you have 3 tight ends in to block? Yeah. Like you got 2 receivers you can throw to, right? Like your third option is your tight end because your Z receiver is actually another tight end that's trying to make it so Geno doesn't die. Yeah. So, I actually feel like Waldron was pretty creative, just not in the way that you would have wanted him to be. He had to be creative in not getting Geno hurt. Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like Waldron got a lot of hate that wasn't necessarily deserved. That being said, when it comes to the numbers, it didn't look good, and that'll get you fired.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, working within those parameters of that just porous offensive line, yeah, very, very difficult situation for sure. Let's have a look at some of the moves. Key moves in free agency and the draft, which is enough about Sam Howell. Which ones kind of stick out in terms of free agency? Jonathan Hankins was one of us who's come from the Cowboys, which is interesting. One Cowboys fan. Sad to see Hankins go. Injured a lot last year, but certainly a big difference maker in the run game when he was fit for the Cowboys. How big a part of that D-line are you expecting Hankins to be? He'll be a piece, right? Like, I don't know that I can give you a good answer of what exactly that defense is going to look like because there's so many 1-year deals. Yeah, that I'm really curious how they're going to put these things together. So I don't know that there's really a good way to know yet. Like, I think it'll take a couple of regular season games to kind of see what it is McDonald actually has planned for this team. A lot of change for sure. We talked about Byron Murphy a little bit being a difference maker again on that defensive line. Who else kind of out the draft, Bo, are you excited to see, and who do you think can make an impact in 2024 for the Seahawks? So Haynes is going to be an impact player immediately because the interior of the offensive line has been a problem. And so you end up with our rookie. Well, I mean, they're second year tackles now, right? Because last year they were both hurt early, but you get Lucas back, you get Cross back. Now we don't know exactly when we get Abraham Lucas back. He had knee surgery in the spring, so he's still kind of not really practicing.
So a guy like Jarrell on there might get some reps. Fant will get some reps for sure at tackle because we don't know when Lucas is coming back, but probably Haynes. And then they just signed a guy from the Dolphins for as a new center, right? So these are things that are going to help that interior of the offensive line, which will help our running game a ton. If our running game gets going, obviously that frees up Gino to do what Gino does.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a very dynamic group. We love talking about JSN on Good Teams and Great Teams cover. I think the three of us, myself and Andrew, are expecting JSN to make a big leap in 2024. Is that how you're feeling about JSN heading into his second year, Bo?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not even like he had a bad year last year. I mean, he looked good. I think he will probably end up stealing some touches from DK. And why I say that is it's tough to not give Lockett his touches because he catches everything that's close, right? And DK sometimes can make easy passes look hard. Right? Like he'll have some that hit him square in the hands that he drops. Now he'll make that miraculous one-handed acrobatic catch and you're like, oh, that's amazing. And then when you see the guy, like he's just an athletic specimen. But the problem is he's not necessarily consistent and he's a little bit of a head case, right? And it's one of those where you like all the things that he brings to the table, except all of the off the ball after the play penalties that he's had more and more of every year he's been in the league. So it's not even like, oh, he's maturing out of it. He's doing the exact opposite. He's like maturing worse. He's like, oh, I only got 5 of these last year. Let's see if I can get 8. So I think JSN might end up stealing some of the reps from DK. And then, obviously they're going to use Bobo because that's another guy that seems to catch everything. And so it's hard to not have plays for him to be on the field. So do I think that you're going to have multiple 1,000-yard receivers like they did before where DK and Lockett both were 1,000 plus? I think that'll be hard because you have 4 very dynamic receivers. And, if you have 4, you got to spread those touches out. And so I would bet that your lead receiver is like a 900. And the rest are somewhere between 6 and 8.
Yeah, spread around. And that'd be a great position to be and make that Seahawks offense and receiving core very difficult to defend if it's being spread out for sure. Let's have a look. We are a gambling show. It's kind of a nice tie-in. Let's have a look at our lines for the Seahawks. I know I always have to feel the need to say we're a gambling show. Let's look at the odds. If people are listening, they already know we're a gambling show.
If they're not at this point, if they're not aware after 102 episodes, 103 shows, odds are they're not going to get it.
Hey, there we go. And the line, Bo, Vegas have got over under for the win total at 7.5.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? And do you think that's a fair line for where the Seahawks are?
So, no. Not that I think it's going to be crazy better or anything like that, right? So I've heard lines go from, or not lines, but I've heard the floor being 6 and the ceiling being 10, right? I don't think they get to 10. I don't think 6 is realistic either, right? So I actually think they return as a 9-win team, as a 9-8, because this team, again, should be better on defense. The offensive line is better than it was, so they should be able to score points. That probably gets you some of those close games they found a way to lose last year as wins. The problem is their schedule is much harder than it was last year. And so they're going to lose some of the games that, are just good teams that they're playing. So I think even though they will be a better overall team, they will be a playoff bubble team at 9-8. So I think they're over. Like that was the long way to say it. I think they'll hit the over. But yeah, I mean, they should be better than a 7-win team.
Do you think that 9 will be enough? It wasn't enough to get them in the playoffs in 2023. Do you think 9 wins will be enough to get them in the playoffs in 2024? It's so close. It's hard to judge. I know this far out, but
Yeah, so a 9-win team will get in on the NFC side. And why I say that is you have the North that's going to cannibalize itself. All four of those teams are going to do work, right? Which also means they're going to beat each other up. When you look at the NFC West, the Rams and the Cards are better. The Niners are the juggernaut they've been, right? Their last hurrah. It's their last year of it. So it's another division that's going to beat each other up. Odds are that 7th seed is probably going to be a 9-win team. Now, is it the Hawks? Tough to say. I think there's going to be a few 9-win teams, and it's going to come down to tiebreakers. I had them and the Rams both at 9 wins, and the Seahawks owning the tiebreaker to get in. But at the same time, if you're a 9-win team, that's a coin flip. You need help.
Yeah. I think it's just in the way that schedule is, I think it's just some absolutely must. Like, there's just games there. They've got to win early to give themselves a chance, I think. Definitely play Denver, New England, and the Giants in the first 5 weeks, and they're kind of 3, like, where I think kind of they've got to get those games in. You know, and there's tough. The divisional games are all tough, aren't they, in NFC West? But yeah, and then some kind of, again, more friendly ones a little bit later on. But I just kind of those 3 early. I think those have just got to have to give themselves a chance to have a good season. Byron, where are you? Where have you got the Seahawks? How many wins?
I'm 11-6, so I'm very on the over. I think that over-under is disrespectful. Said the same about the Rams earlier, 8.5 wins. I don't know what Vegas is seeing. That, I mean, it is a tough division, but I do not see how they think the Seahawks have got 2 games worse than last year, or a game and a half worse than last year. I think the Seahawks are a playoff team pretty comfortably, in my opinion. I think they get to 10 wins. I can't see them being 8-9. I can't 9-8. I can see 10-7. I can see. I do have them 11-6. I can see 10-7 easily as well, though. Truthfully, I just think, you know, the improvement they made on defense, and especially with Mike McDonald calling the defense now, I just think it's such a big upgrade, and I think Ryan Grubb is an upgrade on Shane Waldron as well. Like I said, I think 7.5 is a little disrespectful, truthfully. I don't know if I'm just in on the Kool-Aid again, but yeah, I'm obviously certainly backing that over. I think that's one of my favorite bets of the season, truthfully.
Are you Geno blind, Byron? Is that what it is?
Quite possibly, but I mean, Geno has been a top 10 quarterback in Seattle, so I'm absolutely fine with that being if I go down with that ship, then so be it. But
I mean, I'm not mad at the Kool-Aid. Like, it, you know,
yeah,
that's cool. I'm with it. You know, I will say I hope you are right.
Listen, I like the Seahawks.
And look, if that's 11 win, if that Seahawks that's an 11-win Seahawks team that gets into you win 11 games during the playoffs, that's Mike McDonald in Coach of the Year conversation, isn't it? For sure, as well. I think if that scenario unfolded,
that's a slam dunk. Like, if he comes in, for them to be an 11-win team, that means their defense is top 10.
Yeah.
So if you can get a team that was as in total defense 28th, right? Run defense 31st. In the middle of the field 32nd. I mean, if you can turn that into a top 10 defense, into a double-digit win season, you'll be contending for the division at that point, because that means you probably beat the Niners twice. So if you were to do all of those things, I would say you absolutely run away with Coach of the Year.
On that note, you mentioned about, you know, 11 win stats getting you in that territory of pushing the Niners. Is there a shot here? Can the Seahawks push out? Joe, our resident 49ers fan, was very paranoid down the back end of the season that the Seahawks were going to chase the Niners down. I don't know what was up with him really there, but is there any way that the Seahawks could push the Niners to win this division, or is that just too much given how strong San Francisco are?
So the Niners, so far, obviously there's still some things that have to get figured out for them, but I wouldn't take that off the table. Like, it's definitely possible. This is going to be a very scrappy team that has a lot to prove, and it's all coaching that hasn't coached in the positions they've been in, that they're currently in, right? So at the NFL level. So all of these guys are in new spots. So they're going to come out swinging. So you do have to respect that, right? Like that'd be like if you're a boxer and you're going against a no-name guy, you better have trained because that guy's coming to knock your head off. And so I would put the Seahawks kind of in that realm. The problem is the Niners, as they're currently constructed, probably have the best roster in the league. So it's going to be tough to overcome that. Now, if the Niners end up with injuries, right? If CMC goes down because last year was his only year where he didn't, or same with Debo, right? If Debo stays healthy, sure. But if he doesn't, and who knows, maybe this Ayuk thing happens and he gets traded. All of a sudden that changes the dynamic of the team. So if they stay with the nucleus they have, then I would say no. But if Ayuk leaves and guys get hurt, then yeah, they can absolutely get ran down.
Yeah. Plus 750 for the Seahawks to win the division, or 15-2.
Sure.
In UK as well, I have to do the conversion. 33-1 to be the NFC representative in Super Bowl 59.
That's a tall order.
And then 66-1 or plus 6,600 to win the whole damn thing. That feels right. That feels about right where they are. What would be a good season, Bo? What would be a good season for the Seahawks?
So I would go with I would be happy with a 9-8 and a wild card win. Just a divisional round exit would be a solid first year for a new coaching staff, a new defense. Like with as many new pieces are on this team, a winning season, a wild card berth, and win. Right? Like knock someone off that wasn't ready for you. And then I would feel like that's a solid opening season.
Yeah. We saw the Packers do that last year to our beloved Dallas Cowboys. That happened for sure. Kind of snuck in there and then ended up with a playoff win for sure. Interesting year season, very exciting season ahead for the Seattle Seahawks, and a lot of love for the Seahawks from Byron especially, but Joe as well. Joe mentioned in the chat, who's listening in the background there, that the Seahawks are the team in the division he's worried about the most, which says a lot given that the Rams are in there with all their talent and Sean McVay at the helm as well. So
that's right. He's a Rams guy. So I have a question for you, even though you're hiding in the back. Do you think Jimmy G is your number 2, or do you think Stetson Bennett coming back from the mental break?
I love Stetson Bennett. So Joe's a Niners guy in the background. He's more worried about the Seahawks and the Rams. But I love Stetson Bennett. I hope we see him a bit in the preseason. He had a bit of a nightmare against the Dallas Cowboys. But I'm hoping that Stetson Bennett gets to stick around in
we know what Jimmy G is, right?
We know what Jimmy G is at this point.
Nobody wants to see Jimmy G again. Let's see Stetson
Bennett. The worst
Bennett.
thing about Jimmy G, though, is even though he's not great, his winning percentage is.
Kyle Shanahan's a hell of a coach.
It happened in New England, too, though.
Also a pretty good coach, Bill Belichick.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I just think now, you've seen him in, I think he said Oakland last year, Vegas last year. Devontae Adams.
Not a good coach, though.
Certainly not.
I mean,
no, McVay, I think, would get okay out of Jimmy G. I don't think I want to see Jimmy G again. He's just going to be methodical and okay. Stetson Bennett is, give me a chaos grenade. If it's not the Cowboys, I want chaos. So that's why I want to see Stetson Bennett. I don't necessarily think he's going to be better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I just think for a neutral viewer, much more fun.
Yeah,
and that's why I want
the Gardner Minshew effect. I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
He's not going to be good, but he's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. Yes. Whereas Jimmy G will probably have a better record, but I won't enjoy it as much.
No, that's fair.
And the Rams will certainly be hoping they don't have to find out the answer to that question.
Yeah.
During the season for sure.
Absolutely.
Bo, just give us a reminder what you've got coming up and where we can catch you.
Yeah. So obviously, if you are watching on YouTube, you can find my channel at Football-Talk. I'll know the socials at Football Talk with Bo. And of course, you can find me on Roku TV 5 days a week.
Excellent. Hardworking, one of the hardest working men around for sure, Bo. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you coming on. And thanks for telling us all about the 2024 Seattle Seahawks. We're going to head to the final segment of our show where we go over our best bets for the NFC West in our podium bets segment. So we'll catch you there in a second.
Awesome. Thanks again for having me on, guys. Always fun.
And on to the final part of our NFC West preview. We've just heard from Bo there talking about the Seattle Seahawks. Thanks to Bo. Make sure you go check him out and follow him for all things Seahawks talk and football in general. He's a great follower, is Bo. We're going to finish off with our podium bets. Let's get cracking just straight into it. So what are we fancying for the NFC West? I'm up first, as always. Love that I get to talk about my bets first. I'm going to go for my bronze bet. Marvin Harrison Jr., 10 or more receiving touchdowns at plus 750. We've talked through that maybe it could be difficult for Marvin Harrison Jr. due to the the talent behind him at wide receiver. But I think that Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray are going to hit it off. And 10 or more receiving touchdowns for Marvin Harrison Jr. is at plus 750 or 15-2. Yeah, I like that one. I just think he's going to have a great year. And I think he's going to be we know Trey McBride had been Kyler Murray's favourite target at the back end of last year, but I think he's going to have so much fun playing with Marvin Harrison Jr. We're going to see a lot of touchdowns from that duo. Next, for me is I think that should be plus 160 and not minus 160. So apologies, Joe. You really should not let me do the slides. LA Rams, my silver bet. LA Rams over 9.5 wins. We talked in our Rams preview. All three of us are high on the Rams. I think that the line's 8.5 is disrespectful. Unless Stafford misses a lot, a big chunk of time, and the Rams will get to 10 wins comfortably. Plus 160. I like that. And then my goal bet, again, not massively too exciting. 9 is over 12.5 wins. That's the alternative win line at plus 200 or 2-1. I kind of said I've got the 9 is somewhere around 12 wins, but I can see that easily getting to 13. I think for the value, the extra value you get on the extra win at 2-1, yeah, I'm liking that. Thoughts, gents, on my 3 bets?
Love the Rams one. Obviously, we talked about that a while ago, I guess, in the show. But I love the Rams over 9.5 double-digit wins. I think I'm not going to say a no-brainer, but I have them pretty comfortably at 10 plus wins. So I like that. Love the value on Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's maybe touch and go whether he gets to 10. Sometimes it can be hard as a rookie, like you said, to narrow receiver pool in Arizona, but the talent's there at wide receiver and at quarterback and at play caller, I think. So, yeah, plus 750, I think, is a really nice price for it, even if it's not a banker. I think it's a nice price.
That's why it's there in bronze. Joe, any thoughts on the 3? I'm sure you're going to be loving the gold medal bet.
Yeah, if the 49ers hit over 12.5, I'll be ecstatic. I think we've mentioned that. I see the Rams getting 10 or more, so both best. And I like the Marvin Harrison Jr. When I was just looking how many players have actually done that, I think in the last 10 years, 7 have. So, I think it's doable when you look at the players who have done it when, Claypool, Jaden Reed, Jordan Addison, Calvin Ridley, they all got 10. So I think it's certainly that possibility for Marvin Harris Jr. to get in where that odds. It's a good shot.
Excellent. Byron, on to yours.
Cool. So Blake Corum, most rookie rushing TDs. Again, you've got Jonathan Brooks price short in this market and Jane Daniels price short in this market. Brooks is going to be out first few weeks and he's on a terrible offense. Jane Daniels, I think, is a threat to it, but those guys like plus 150, 175. I think outside of them, Trey Benson's going to be a slow starter. I think Blake Corum, again, as mentioned on the Rams preview, I think he can come in and hit the ground running. I think he's going to spell Kyren Williams, which could mean goal line work. It could mean third quarter work, fourth quarter work when the Rams are up. And if he gets that starting job at any point because Kyren goes down, who has missed games for injury all his career, I think plus 800 is, I think it's a hell of a bet. He could be a league winner in fantasy. I think plus 800, I was kind of stunned. I've seen the price. I thought it might be like plus 400 maybe. Kyren Williams was a workhorse when he was in last year, but again, he did miss time. And I just think Blake Corum, the opportunity is screaming out if he can get it.
Excellent.
Yeah, I had to get a Geno one in. Love that Seahawks. So the bet is, sorry, if we're on an audio podcast.
Yeah, you need to read it.
Geno and Stafford to get 4,000 or more passing yards. To both get 4,000 plus passing yards. That's plus 900, 9-1 essentially. I just think if they both play 17 games, they're both going to hit it. They're both in prolific passing offenses. I love what the Seahawks have done with bringing Ryan Grubb in to replace Shane Waldron. We've got 3 wide receiver sets. Even Jake Bobo's wide receiver 4. He's probably one of the best 4th wide receivers in the league, which I know is not everything. But, yeah, I think, again, one of my kind of takes after the end of last season was like, how you feel about Geno Smith is kind of my like, do you know ball test. Geno Smith is still great. The Seahawks line collapsed early last season, and that made it really tough for him. Whenever Geno Smith's had time in Seattle, he's been a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I don't really see why he wouldn't be this year. I'm certainly not worried about Sam Howell. And again, I just think if these guys play 17 games, then they hit 4,000 really easily. And on my shortlist here was for them to both go over 4,500, which is 110-1, which just throw a quid on it. Like, again, if they both play 17 games, they could definitely both go over 4,500 without blinking too much. I don't think. I think the Seahawks are going to be pass heavy, and they're going to have a competent OC. So,
and then your last one,
yeah, kind of related to that, Rams and the Seahawks to make the playoffs at plus 460. Big odds than I normally have for my gold bet, but I just think they're both going to get 10 wins, and that might be enough to get into this playoffs. I have them both in on my predictor. I just think they're both, the 49ers are the cream of the division, but also, obviously 3 wildcard teams make the playoffs, and NFC East, you might get 1 in Dallas. NFC North, you might get 1 or 2. NFC South's not getting an extra 1. So the fair bet that 2 come from the NFC West, who I think have got really good teams. I think it does come down to really like Seahawks versus the Bears, Packers, whoever doesn't make it as the wildcard team in that division. So I just think it's really good odds for like not that many spaces. Like we can rule out the Giants, the Commanders, the Vikings, all of the NFC South who don't win it. I don't think there's that many paths where they both don't make it. So I think one of them, I think the Rams are pretty much nailed on for a playoff spot. I'm surprised at their odds. And yeah, I think for them both to get it plus 460, I just think is a really, really good price.
Excellent. Joe, thoughts on Byron's 3?
Yeah, like them all. Some good bets there. I was just having a look what Stafford and Geno got last year to try and see where they're about. So they're both under 4,000, but I think they both only played 15 games. So I think, like you said, it's if they play the full 17, they should hopefully hit that 4,000 mark. And if they do, I think my only worry is that if, for example, the Seahawks, if their defense changes and it's more keeps low scoring games, is it going to be more conservative kind of offense in that kind of way? But the OC coming from Washington didn't play that way in college, so hopefully should be bombs away.
Yeah, I'm just worried on that. Is that silver one on Geno? And I know, look, he has been really good. He has been great since he's been in Seattle. Also, both of them to make through 17 games, which is probably what you need. It's tough given just the rate of quarterbacks going down with injury.
Yeah,
it's tough. But that's why it's 9-1, isn't it? At the end of the day, Geno still was good last year, but I just sense he's going to tail off. But 4,000 passing yards. It's not as difficult as it once was.
I was going to say it's not the 90s. Yeah, like you got an extra game, and it's a passing league.
Also, neither one of those 2 quarterbacks plays for the Chicago Bears. So.
The Bears pass is going over 4,000 this year as well. So, as long as it's Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
If he gets injured, that is definitely. I'm not holding that to any Bears quarterback.
Tyson Pigeon, yeah. Joe, let's have a look at yours then, mate.
Yeah, my first one is JSN to go over 1,000 receiving yards. I think the talk out of camp, he's supposed to be his relationship with Geno is supposed to be going really well. Like I mentioned, obviously the new OC being from Washington, I think they're going to throw it quite a bit more, and I think it could be with Lockett getting slightly bit older, could JSN start being his like main target man? So for plus 400, I thought that was a good shout to get over 1,000 yards for JSN with my bronze.
Excellent.
For myself, I've got that the NFC West will be the division where the conference winners come from. So obviously, hoping that's the 49ers as usual. But I'm similar to Byron. I think the Rams and Seahawks are going to make the playoffs, and I think they're strong contenders. That if they do make it, if you go through out the 7 teams, then you've got like 50% chance at plus 140. Those are nice little odds.
And then gold.
Finally, I've got for my gold is Stafford over 30 passing touchdowns, which is plus 500. So last year we only passed 24. But I just think he might throw a few more and just need a bit more luck and not give it all to Kyrie Williams to put it in. So hopefully he gets a few more stuff. But with that odds at plus 500, hopefully, yes, see a bit more of that.
Yeah. How many times has Stafford been over 30? It must be a fair few times in his career.
You know what? I don't even know.
Thought you'd have had that prepped and lined up, Joe. As part of your explanation for the bet.
Only 3 times. Only 3 times.
That's interesting. Given
a lot of 29 seasons as well. A couple of 29 seasons.
That was in a 16-game season, so if you do it on a per-game basis, it'll be over 30, a few more, I would bet.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I like that Stafford one, to be fair. Yeah, pretty solid bet. So through JSN's interesting, if we would have talked about, him during our Seahawks preview. But yeah, JSN's real interesting for me this year. I'm expecting a big leap from him.
Likewise, I love that JSN bet. That was on my short list to go on my bronze or silver, but I just think he has to improve based on not being schemed at the line of scrimmage. Like, use him as a wide receiver. He's not a screen-only player. I don't know what on earth Shane Waldron was cooking in Seattle last year, but the fact that he's not going to be doing that is only positive. I think JSN, again, don't know where he's going in fantasy drafts off the top of my head, actually, but he's someone I'm certainly interested in, and I think he'll go over 1,000 as well, about a 4-to-1 price. And unsurprisingly, I love the Stafford over 30 passing touchdowns as well at plus 500.
Excellent. Good stuff. Some great selections there, chaps. That brings us to the end of our NFC West preview. 7 down, 1 to go. Our AFC West preview is up next week, and will be our last before we start getting into the week of the season starting, where we'll have 2 episodes for you. So yeah, lots to come from good teams and great teams cover, especially once we get into the regular season. Shout out, thanks to Bo, thanks to Paul Hope from 49 Faithful UK for joining us, both fantastic guests. As always, give us a follow. Good teams and great teams cover over on Spotify. You'll be notified as and when new episodes dropped. Also hit us on our YouTube. It's TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at GTW_GTC. And until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.